Hey, what's happening, everyone? Welcome to the Jeff Gerstmann Show. My name is Jeff Gerstmann. I'll be hosting this week's installment. It is July 30th. That means new MAME Day is tomorrow. If you're keeping track of how fast the months are going by when there is a new version of MAME released, then, well, tomorrow is the day. They were a little bit late last month, to be honest, though. If we're being real here, they were ever so slightly late. That's their prerogative. I don't know. There used to be MAME the release schedule has changed so much over the years. Can't wait to see what new versions of chess they've emulated this month. Anyway, yeah, and then it's my birthday. I don't know. It's weird. Hi. We're here. We're podcasting. The audio situation seems to be fixed. The music was coming out of both channels, so that's nice. I don't know what the heck was going on with last week. It was just at the last minute. The kids, I was talking about it before the show started here. These kids, they love to come to this computer and push the buttons. My daughter, who just turned 5, she's a little more rational with how she pushes them. Like, she wants to type her name and she wants to type actual words when she can. But then I'll set up the soundboard for them, and they will just mash on it like this. This might be loud for you at home. And
we didn't think anything was going to happen, but it did.
They will just completely slam on all the buttons at the same time. And that's fun. I don't know. Like, you know, it's they have a good time, but like, it does occasionally lead to my daughter walking around the house saying, and my son has said it a couple times too, saying, knock, knock, open up the door. Is it real? And yeah. I don't know. You realize over time that like the stuff that you do rubs off on your kids. And that's how it happens. And that's how kids become people, is they just absorb a lot of things around them. So my daughter talks, you know, she's watching a lot of cartoons and like there's a lot of sassy characters on kids' TV. And my daughter has gotten a mouth on her, not a cursey mouth, but like a talk backy mouth that's just like, what? You don't even know what you're saying. You don't even mean that. You just like picked that up and you're like, whoa, where did that come from? And it's really, and the thing. So we went to Disneyland for her birthday, which was recently, and we get in the car, and we're not in the car for like 10 minutes, and she says, "Are we there yet?" I'm like, "No," and she asked the whole way, and I'm like, where does that come from? It's just like a weird universal thing but it has to come from somewhere. And so there must be some cartoon or something that she had seen, Peppa Pig or something, where that was a bit, and then she made it a bit. And, but it, I don't know, it was not much of a bit that she meant it. And so of course traffic was terrible and all this other stuff. And she's just like, it was a time. It was a time, whatever. We went on the Dumbo ride. She had a good time. And so over these past couple of days, and you know, it's end of the summer. She's going to start kindergarten here real soon. She's going to go off to like quote unquote real school. And that's really crazy for a lot of reasons. But you know, we kept her really busy this summer. My wife enrolled her in a bunch of different camps and cooking camps and, you know, dancing this and, you know, whatever else. And, but like, you know, that was earlier in the summer, and now, you know, summer's just about over, which is weird to say, at the end of July, but school starts way earlier now than it did when I was a kid. We made it all the way into September before school had to start, and now it's more like mid-August, and I'm like, that's a ripoff. Kids are getting fucked over by the school system. And but also as a parent, I'm like, yeah, great, no, send her off. Get her get her learn on. But yeah, she has really taken to video games over these last few days in a way that she has not before. Really, the last couple of weeks, she kind of got back into them in a way that in a way that she was kind of passively interested in them. She went with my wife out to some breakfast place. I don't know. They went out for breakfast. This was before her birthday, and I started getting pictures. I'm here with the boy and with the baby. We're hanging out, having a good time. And I started getting these pictures, and it's her standing at like one of those tiny arcade cabinets, the fake arcade cabinets that company sells at like Costco or whatever. And she's playing Satan's Hollow. And so it's like I'm looking at footage of my daughter, my then 4-year-old daughter playing Satan's Hollow, and I'm like, fucking yes, fuck yeah, holy shit, what? And she likes it because I did let her know. I'm like writing back, let her know that she can play Satan's Hollow at home. I have a setup that will allow her to play that. And there's never she has not asked about Satan's Hollow since then. But she's taken to the 3DS and the Nintendo Switch all over again, and is now just like running through, because I guess I have like all these Mario games and she's figured out how to re-download games. And so yesterday she downloaded whatever the most recent Donkey Kong Country was. And so yesterday she learned who Funky Kong was. And that's a weird conversation to have. Because she knows who Donkey Kong is on account of, I guess this is also, that she's been playing Smash Brothers for the GameCube on this PC. When I'm not using it, when I allow her to. That's usually like a end of the day before bed kind of thing. And so she's been seeing all these characters, and I was like, that's Samus. It's like, is Samus a lady? I'm like, well, yes. Okay, then I want to play as her. Okay, all right. And she beat the game as all the ladies. Though she has me fight the hand now. Like every time she just hands the controller to me, and I hit the hand. I beat up the hand at the end of the game. And she's been playing more and more of that, and as a side effect of that, she has like seen and learned like so before that she played a lot of Mario Kart. And so as a result of Mario Kart and now Smash Brothers Melee, she has gained a learning and understanding of who these characters are and has retained all of that. So when she saw a Donkey Kong game, she was like, "What? Oh, yeah, what?" And then I had to explain to her that, okay, well, there's Donkey Kong, but also there's Funky Kong, and I just kind of said, well, Funky Kong's cooler. You should play as Funky. For those that don't know, in that game, the whole Funky Kong thing, Funky Mode, whatever it is an easier version of the game. Funky Kong has this double jump that I don't think Donkey Kong has, but more importantly, he has 5 hearts, whereas Donkey Kong has 3. And she was like, she played as Funky Kong a couple of times and then switched to Donkey Kong. And then she came to the realization, it's like, oh, he only has 3 hearts. I'm like, yeah, that's why you should play as Funky Kong. It'll be easier. She's like, okay, yeah, Funky Kong. And so I had a conversation with my daughter, who is now 5, about Funky Kong, which is, again, like just not something you think of when you start thinking about the video games and the role they play in your life. You don't think that someday you're going to have to teach a child about Funky Kong, or that said child will have figured out who Sonic the Hedgehog is all on her own, because I have done my best to not tell her about it. But I don't know if on some schoolyard somewhere, some hooligan is telling her about Sonic the Hedgehog. Man. And I think some kids talked to her about Minecraft, because she was talking about Minecraft recently, but she does not know what Minecraft is. She just knows that some other kids play it. And it's been, so I today was okay. So 2 things have happened over the last 24 hours. Yesterday was the first time that her mom was going somewhere and bringing all the kids, and she said, no, I want to stay home. I want to play. And instead, I'm going to play. I think she's playing open world Mario thing, the add-on, the Bowser, the Bowser's Fury, is that what it's called? She got way into that, and she was like, no, I'm gonna stay home. And I'm like, okay. And so she stayed home and played video games the entire time, and I'm like, yeah. But then today, they were all going out, and she had to go with them this time because this is back to school shopping and all this other stuff. And today was the first time she was like, "No, I don't want to. Like, no, I'm not going to go with you. I want to stay here. I am playing Cooking Mama on the 3DS." And so I had to sit with her and talk to her and have the most. For me to be having this conversation is very, perhaps slightly disingenuous, but I had to be like, all right, honey, well, the games will be here for you when you get back. I'll charge up the 3DS so it's full of battery so you can play it later and you don't need to do... And like, it's okay. Video games are a sometimes thing. You don't have to play them all the time. And as I'm saying this, like in my head, I'm like, what the fuck are you saying? What are you even talking about? What is this horse shit? What are you pushing on this child? And I'm like, this is what you have to do. And she eventually bought that and went, okay, yeah, all right. And then left. But it's just like, it's such a wild turn of events, man. She's getting better with controllers and all of that stuff. Interestingly, like she's the 3D Mario games, I think, have gotten her really good at movement and the stuff that she was bad at before, and just like because originally I was like, she was showing light interest in video games. This is before she had played Mario Kart, and I was like, well, here, try to play the Pac-Man, and you can push up and down and learn what up, because at that point she had maybe just turned 4 or was maybe even still 3 at that point. And up, down, left, right was still kind of a confusing thing for her. So like, I thought that maybe Pac-Man would help with that. It didn't. And then she got into Mario Kart a little bit after that. First, she was playing it on the 3DS, and then she found the Switch, and I showed her Mario Kart on that, and she's been into that version. Though not lately, she's been playing. Well, she just found Mario Odyssey this morning, and I was like, okay, now you need to throw the hat at this frog. And she's like, why? I'm like, well, watch. And then she turned into a frog, and she was like, holy smoke. Yeah, it's interesting. It's really interesting. And you see, when you see the Nintendo lineup through their eyes, it takes on a very different quality. Like, you look at it and go like, yeah, no, I see why kids would be into this. I see why. Like, but also some of these games are still too difficult too soon for a 4-year-old or 5-year-old to really get anything done. And so I find myself playing a lot of the second halves of levels and fighting Bowser a lot. She'll get up to Bowser and then not be able to like Bowser's in a car and he's driving away and he's throwing soccer ball bombs at me. I'm like, here, I'll handle it. And then she messes up on the saves, and then I find myself doing that boss fight again the following day. So it's she's her reading is starting to go. She's a better reader than she thinks she is. When we stop her and go, no, what does that say? Sometimes she will just like rattle it off, but she just doesn't think to try to read it a lot of the time. But she's getting there, and it's a really. I mean, it's awesome. Like, whatever. Like, being a parent is fucking rad for a lot of reasons. And I don't, like, it doesn't matter to me. I don't want to force them to play video games. I don't, in fact, there's a part of me that doesn't want them to have an interest in this because, again, they keep fucking up my computer. God damn it. They keep coming in here and well, the music's only coming out of the left channel, or the microphone has been completely dismantled and broken, and I'm putting it all back together and all this other stuff. So selfishly, I don't want them anywhere near that stuff. But also, I don't, I think that the types of parents that force their stuff onto their kids are kind of like, I think that's kind of lame. So I'm just like, whatever. But like, also, they're completely surrounded by it. I mean, let's be honest here. Like, it's literally everywhere in this room. And so it's only natural that they would dabble. But I'm curious, like, if they'll have an interest in it. My son will sometimes grab the 3DS while she's on the Switch, or they'll switch back and forth and whatever else. And so he's definitely got an interest in it as well. But he's, 2.5, coming up on 3. And so he's not there yet. But yeah, it's a really fascinating thing, and you start to have those conversations about moderation and not playing games all the time and all that stuff, and it's bizarre, man. But what else is going on in the world of video games? I'll tell you what's going on. It's time to try another one of these trash ass drinks. We got to get through them eventually, and I've been haunted by this for some time because it's been sitting over there in the stack. But I thought it would be a good time to get through another one of these. It's dragon fruit flavored Woo Energy. This is the Ric Flair branded energy drink. It says sparkling mushroom elixir for energy and focus. It also says Ric Flair sip with an apostrophe after the P, which is not, sip is just a word. You don't need to put that there. It's not like it's not short for something. It's just playing off of Ric Flair drip, which also you would not need an apostrophe for. And so I just, also they have not capitalized the F in Flair. So I just feel like there's just a lot going on with this trash. We tried one of these flavors before and it did not score well. Let me bring up the list here and we'll just quickly do this. It's been a while since we've ranked a drink here. And sometimes you have to reestablish dominance in the energy drink reviewing, podcasting, video game podcasting field. You know how it is. Oh, let's see. Where did the other Ric Flair? We have 175 drinks on the list. Let's see where the other Woo Energy ended up. Oh, it's at 171. Yeah. Woo Energy Lemon. Lemon was the one that I thought would be the best of the 3 flavors. So let's see what dragon fruit is all about. Oh, God. Oh, God. Well, I had to drink a bunch of it because it started to explode out of the fucking can. Just like Ric Flair himself. Woo. Fuck. All right, there's a mess all over my floor. It didn't, for what it's worth, it did not taste like much of anything. Okay, what are we going to use to absorb this? I could go get some paper towels. That would be the smartest thing. All right. I had a bathrobe. It was already dirty because it was shoved behind a crib, and it was just wrinkled up on the floor. It needed to be washed anyway, and so I am now wiping up Ric Flair's Woo Energy. Ric Flair's Woo Energy is all over this robe. I suppose that's fitting in a disgusting way. Oh, what a fucking mess. Ric Flair, you scumbag. Okay. Okay. It didn't taste like much of anything when I had to drink it very quickly, but also that was such an alarming moment that I need to do it for science now. It's a very light flavor. There's just not a lot to it. But what is there is kind of like a gross aftertaste. Doesn't really have a strong like dragon fruit or any kind of fruit flavor to it. It's just sort of I don't know, it's chemicals. It tastes like chemicals. Yeah, just a messy chemical aftertaste. There's a bit of effervescence to it. I mean, again, it's very light. You know, almost like a sparkling water or something. Which they do use the word sparkling on the can, which is I've found in the years of doing this that is a secret code for the flavor will not be strong. Sparkling means, like a sparkling water, which means everything about it is going to be light at an attempt to be refreshing, but they will certainly not get there. Yeah, it's not good, but it is better than Woo Energy Lemon, which is at 171 on our list. I would say it is better than Rockstar X-Durance Marshmallow, which is a nightmare of a drink. It's probably up here in this Celsius range. It's not as good as Ghost Bubblicious Cotton Candy. Someone on the Discords showed me that there was a Ghost Welch's grape flavor out there somewhere, and I need to find that because that's probably real good. A good breakfast drink, I think. T-bone steak, cheese, eggs, Welch's, Ghost Welch's grape. I think that's just how you whether you're having breakfast at 3 a.m. or 3 p.m, I think that's a solid. That would be a solid combo. Let's see. This is better than the Focusade Melon Mate, which was fucking gross. This is better than the Kumu Peachy Lemonade, but not by much. It is better than Celsius Arctic Vibe and Alani Nu Arctic White. It is better than G Fuel Pink Drip, but it is not as good as Bang Whole Lotta Chocolata. So it's our new number 155. If you want to see the full list, you can go to energy.guard.bike. That will get you there. And congratulations to Ric Flair for spilling all over my floor. And the backs of my hands also, while we're thinking about it. There it is. Number 156. Thank you. Thank you. These have been sitting here for a little while, and so I don't remember who sent these, but thanks to whoever sent the Ric Flair beverages. I'm just going to set that there. Okay. Anyway, video games. Kunitsu-gami. Path of the Goddess. Came out. It is on Game Pass. This is a game from Capcom. Everyone has been saying the same thing about this game, and I think everyone has been coming by that comparison pretty honestly. I don't think it's necessarily a hive mind, everyone copying everyone sort of deal, but it is the most PlayStation 2-ass video game that has come out in a very long time. And it's exciting in that very specific way. It's a very neat game. It is a tower defense game of sorts. It's on, like I said, it's on Game Pass, but it is available across multiple platforms depending on how you want to get at it. It is a third-person game with a more pulled out and small camera perspective that makes these villages that you're protecting look a little more toy-like in some ways, and the viewpoint and the look of it, I think, really goes a long way. If it was just a standard kind of behind-the-back third-person camera, and more of a character action kind of presentation for it, I think that would be, it would not be nearly as interesting. And also that's helpful because the game works in phases. You are going through an action phase where enemies are coming through a gate to try to get to your lady, and your lady is, she's doing Final Fantasy X fucking dances the entire time. And you have to protect her while she does that. And you have to lead her to the gate so that she can dance and close the gate so that demons stop coming through it and terrorizing the village. And And so when you get in these action phases, the enemies will come through and they'll split into lanes, like a tower defense, whether it's like a Plants versus Zombies or, whatever sort of thing. They will kind of split into lanes and head in the direction of the target. You can enlist villagers and you can assign them roles almost like lemmings. You say, hey, you should be a woodcutter, you should be an archer, and so on and so forth. You can level up each of the different jobs to, hey, you do a little more damage, you take a little more damage, all of that. And you can also level up your character. So you're kind of the thumb on the scale in that situation. Like, it's not pure tower defense where you're just like, okay, we've got to plop these guys down and then sit back and watch and hope for the best. Like, it's, you do all that and you can order them around at will in the middle of a fight even. But also you are the one running around. You can run around and stab the shit out of people. It's got a decent little combo system in it. A few different options for you to go with there. And you can equip different items that'll be like, oh, you can take an extra ration into battle so you can have a little more food for healing, or, you can, whatever. You can kind of equip different moves on your character. And you'll occasionally run into some boss fights. You're trying to get I think it's 11 different masks is the storyline kind of goal here. And then outside of combat, you will have your phase of running around the village trying to purge it of evil, which will then get you more villagers in theory to work on the next action phase. But then even outside of that, once you've kind of closed all the gates in a village, there is an act of going around the village and telling the villagers, like, hey, repair these structures that were damaged by the demons. And as you go through all of the villages that you've liberated, and time passes from you doing more stages, those bases will be upgraded because the villagers fixed all the stuff in them and what have you. And so there's kind of a meta layer on top of the gameplay part of it, which has its action phase and strategy phase, if that makes any sense. So sort of three different things going on. At the outset, like, I was honestly, I was straight up sleeping on this one from some of the trailers and some of the other stuff, because, looking at it, it was like, this looks like a fairly formulaic kind of tower defense, sort of, like action tower defense, I guess is what you would say. But and generally speaking, I'm just not that interested in that. and so Kunitsu-gami, I was like, yeah, maybe I'll take a look at it, whatever. And then when I finally got around to it, I was like, oh wait, this is awesome. Like, I don't know that I'm gonna necessarily blast through the entire game and all that sort of stuff, but like structurally and how it operates and how it presents itself to you is really, really cool. I will say that a lot of the menus have a real form over function kind of style to them when you're looking for different things to equip on your character or what have you. Like the menus to dig all that stuff out are stylized in such a way that you find yourself spending a lot more time doing that sort of stuff than it seems like you should have to. But it's nice in that way too. I don't know, like, everything has become so standardized. Not to, I don't want to like soapbox about like games were better before or whatever, but like this game feels like it is operating outside of the standard box of where games are today. And I think you saw a lot more of that a few generations ago, when a lot of these concepts were not as codified and well worn as they were before, in terms of like, how do you control a character? What do you do? Like, it feels different. It feels like it is cut from a different cloth. It feels like it is a different approach to game making. Like, it's, again, and it has that PS2 vibe in such a way that you almost want to hit triangle to back out of a menu. Remember when that used to be the way that you backed out of menus in games? Of course you don't. Because why would you? Everyone just thinks of it as like it was circle. It was always circle. Like, no. For the longest time, a lot of PlayStation games made you hit the triangle button to get out of a menu. What the fuck is that about? I go back and play them now and I'm like, what the hell? Why? Why do they do that? It's nonsense. Yeah, Kunitsu-gami is a really interesting game. Again, it's on Game Pass. I think, if you have access to Game Pass, you should definitely check it out. As I think it is a $50 game. That might be a slightly tougher sell. I don't like it's not that the game it's not that the game feels slight. It's that it's just, you know, in terms of like scope and what you're doing, like it feels like a tighter package. And I think that that's ultimately to its benefit. But I don't know, today's conversations about value in games and how much things should cost are always so broken that it is sort of a weird, it's just a weird conversation to have. I don't know. It doesn't seem small. It seems like, again, it's not that the game seems small. It's that it seems very focused. And, you know, in having conversations about the length of the game with some of the people who've played more of it than I have, like it sounds like it has a level of depth to it. But I guess like the thing I'd say is I'm also probably not a person who would ever run through these stages a second time, because you know you'll get ranked on how well you did, and there are different goals to achieve inside of the mission that will get you extra bonuses, and you know you get your 3 stars or whatever. And I'm not going to be that guy. But I think if you are that sort of person and you find yourself wanting to replay these levels to really get them right, I'm sure you could spend a ton of time with it. It's nice. It's got a really cool look to it. Some really nice lighting in terms of, you know, because you're these villages are kind of in a forest on the side of a mountain, and you know the way the light plays through the trees and whatever else. Like it's really neat. It's got a lot of systems at play, but it's not too much to manage. It's a very cool kind of throwback sort of product. And it's cool to, again, you know, like Capcom, I think, has done a really good job of just like making shit, you know, in an era when a lot of companies, especially companies that had games as strong as Monster Hunter and Street Fighter, and Resident Evil, you know, rolling right now with their bigger games. It is kind of awesome to see them occasionally still taking these stabs at different projects. And that is perhaps the nicest thing I could say about Exoprimal. Is that it's cool that they made that. It's cool that they at least tried to do something different and tried to launch a new IP, if you will, with Exoprimal. I don't know that we'll see a sequel to Exoprimal, but cool that they did it. Amazing that after all these years they said, "Hey, we are going to make a sequel to Dragon's Dogma." You're like, "Oh, what? Great. Awesome. You should do that. It's great that you did that. That's a cool game." And now Kunitsu-gami. Kunitsu-gami and Exoprimal, both Game Pass games. I wonder if that's just a case of like, if Capcom is just saying like, well, fuck, dude, if we can get Microsoft to fund a bunch of the development cost of this game, let's sure make something crazy. I don't know. We're not going to put Resident Evil on Game Pass, but yeah, fuck it, let's make something. And they're doing well, you know. They had their recent kind of stock call, earnings call, and it sounds like that they are outperforming in a lot of different areas across a lot of their different product lines. And there was a question in there about Mega Man because, you know, once a year someone finally gets through and goes, "What's the deal with Mega Man?" And they give a similar answer every single time, and that is like, "Hey, yeah, we would love to make more Mega Man games. If we could figure out a way to make more Mega Man games, we will. We're always thinking about Mega Man." I don't know. I am of two minds. No, I think that they should make more Mega Man games. I think so. But also, I don't know that I am interested in playing more Mega Man games, depending on what they make. You know, if they're making something dramatically different, like my point is if they go and they say like, we're making Mega Man 11 or 12 or, you know, whatever and they're just going to make another one of those, the way that they kind of did, you know, more recently with like Mega Man 10 and stuff, like I'm good. I don't need more like new / old Mega Man games. I'm not especially. I don't think there's a lot of interest there, or a lot of like lasting interest that would make that work as like a going concern. But like, what do you do with Mega Man at this point? Mega Man Soccer 2 is the answer, right? Rockman Battle and Chase : New Generation. Yeah. right? But yeah, I don't. Yeah, I off the top of my head, I'm not exactly sure what the best path forward for Mega Man would be. Whether it would be, I want to say the last Mega Man game that they were working on, or that someone was working on, that we heard about, was the so-called Dark Mega Man game, that first-person shooter thing. Is it called Maverick Hunters? Was that the code name or the name that eventually came out? But I remember hearing about that while it was still in active development, or while it was still, before it had gotten canceled. It never officially got announced, and even then, it just sounded like some fucking Bomberman Act Zero type shit. The way it was mentioned to me at the time was that someone was going to go work on it, and that was thought of as a demotion from what they were doing. Like they had done something wrong at the company, and as a result, the company said, "You're going to go work on the Mega Man, the Dark Mega Man game." So internally, it sounds like they really loved the concept, and it was always had a great chance to make it, or whatever. But so yeah, I don't know what you do with Mega Man at this point. That was that PSP game where you could make Mega Man levels, right? What if they did? I always thought that was kind of a cool idea. I'd say you could do some kind of run-based thing, but that's sort of what that was. It 20XX. They did that, right? Also, the run-based thing, I think, is sort of run its course a little bit. Yeah, a search action game starring Mega Man would actually be an interesting thing. Like a search action Mega Man game where you just find the fucking robot bosses out in the world, and you're getting powers as you go, and so as a result, you can't necessarily even get to that boss fight unless you have the tools needed to fight that boss, or whatever. That could be an interesting thing. You could do a new Battle Network. But for as cool as Battle Network is, that's when people say they want more Mega Man, I don't think they necessarily think that that's the thing, right? Like people want some Mega Man ass Mega Man, but yeah, I don't know. Capcom, yeah, in great shape. We talk about it all the time, but it's easy to forget sometimes just how on the ropes Capcom felt there for a while. Good on them for sticking it out and figuring it out, I guess. There's a Marvel Rivals beta running right now that I guess people have had trouble getting into. It was supposed to be Twitch drops, but the Twitch drops were broken or something. I loaded it up, and I maybe we should just move on. I don't think I have anything really of value to say about Marvel Rivals other than that I played a couple of matches of it and uninstalled it. I don't have any interest in it. Like, I don't need another fucking, like, post-Overwatch hero shootery sort of thing. Like, I don't have any interest in it whatsoever. Like, I don't want to engage with those the types of powers they give you and stuff. Like, it's just like, man, I so don't want that. It's the sort of feeling of like, oh, if I wanted to play Overwatch, I would still play Overwatch. I'm not looking for another Overwatch. I'm not looking for someone to fill an Overwatch sized hole in my life. It's more just like, yeah, the Punisher can drop down a turret, and then you can man the turret and shoot people. And, he's got like a smoke grenade or something. The Hulk, he's not always the Hulk. Sometimes, and then you turn him into the Hulk, and then the Hulk can like smash the ground, and then that makes bubbles that appear around your allies that are nearby. So like you can shield your allies. That's how they give the Incredible Hulk some kind of support role, is by making weird shield bubbles come out of him when he does a certain move. And it's like, okay. It's just a weird, it's just like conceptually weird. But what, whatever. I don't know. Like someone's going to love the shit out of that game. I'm just like not interested in that type of game anymore. So I don't know, man. It's just feels. It was just like, as I was playing it, the general feeling was just like, ugh, boy. All right, sure. Whatever, man. But I'll tell you what is fucking awesome. So Evo happened. There was a fighting game tournament. I didn't watch. I managed to catch the last two fights in the last two sets of Street Fighter 6. The last two matchups. And that's usually where I'm at with Evo, is like Sunday night we'll roll around, I'll be like, oh right. Street Fighter. And so I ended up watching that, and I ended up in the middle of all that. You get excited for fighting games all over again. That's the cool thing that Evo does, is you watch it and you go, fucking yeah. Fighting games, they're so good. And there's always ads for stuff and new gear, and everyone's always like, what should I use to be better at fighting games? And I think a lot of people get suckered into spending too much money on stuff. And they're Razer is out there selling. They're finally starting to sell their leverless controller, and they want $300 for it. And I was looking at it because I've wanted to try out the leverless lifestyle for a while, but couldn't find the right controller. It's like, well, maybe when this Razer one comes out, maybe that'll be interesting. And then it's like $300 freaking dollars. I'm like, okay, no, that's not. I'm not going to do that. And then every time Evo rolls around, all the other places that sell them custom made or whatever, they always sell out. And so you're always looking at it and going, well, I'd like to get one of those, but maybe in 6 months when they're selling them again, that'll be that. But as Evo was going on, I did discover that these are out there, and I ended up buying one, and it showed up very quickly considering it had to come from China. And so I bought this. What is it? This is the Hot 42, the Cosmo X, M16 Plus. And it is a bunch of fucking buttons on a very thin pad. It has like LED light up buttons. It is a very well made, very solid metal item. It feels incredibly sturdy in the hand. And I hooked it up, and I gotta say, it's kind of fucking awesome. This whole like joystick without a joystick sort of thing is kind of fucking incredible. And I did not expect that to be the case. I figured I would get it and go like, I can't do this, and I can't wrap my mind around it. I can't figure this out. I am not adjusted to it. There's a lot of muscle memory you'd have to relearn to make this transition. And a lot of time you'd have to put in to really get there. But I will say that I got further faster than I ever thought I would. This thing is running open source firmware. And when you plug it in, it is a web interface. You open a web browser and connect it to the fucking controller, and then you go in and make changes to it. And you can change some of the different behavior. You can kind of alter, you can remap the buttons there if you want. And so this has extra buttons. They sell a 12 button version of this that maybe I should have gotten instead. I almost wish there was a 13 button version of it. These 4 buttons, these 2 up here and these 2 down here, are not on the 12 button version. And this one in particular is just kind of in the way. But the idea is that you, and for people who haven't seen these, if you're not watching the video version, I'll try to describe it. But like the up button on the joystick is your left thumb. And so you're laying your hand flat, and on your ring finger, you've got left. On your middle finger, you've got down. On your index finger, you've got right. And then on your thumb, you've got up or jump. And so you always have your fingers on all of the movement all at once. The 16 button version also has a button above the down that is mapped to up. And so that's been a weird cheat almost. Like, it would be harder for me to learn this if I couldn't just move my middle finger up and jump. And so in that way, it almost becomes a WASD style of controller with that. And then the buttons are the buttons, you know? And so this thing, I ended up paying, I think, $120, which for how well made this thing is, feels like kind of, again, it is a very sturdy feeling item. But I picked it up off AliExpress because that is apparently their official store. And I'm like, oh boy. And also when you're looking at a $300 razor and then you see this thing and it's $120, you're like, yeah, okay. Like it became almost impulse. It did. It literally became impulse purchase territory. I'm like, I have to know. And it's fucking awesome. So like when you connect to the web through the web browser, there's a ton of different things you can configure there about the color, and you can upload a new logo to it. But also there's a lot of behavior, because you can do stuff on this that you can't necessarily do on a regular joystick because of the way joysticks work, right? And so they have to build in logic for like what happens if you hit left and right at the same time, because that's something that you cannot do on a real joystick. And so there's logic in here that you can set a few different ways about how you want those inputs to be cleaned up, about what takes priority over what, and so on. I've been using the default, which has been working great for me. Some games, I know that some emulators have things that will disable the left-right simultaneous inputs, because some games will just straight up break if you do that, and sometimes that's interesting for like speed run things, or there's just like weird things you can do because the controllers were never built to allow that sort of stuff. And the tournaments will have specific rules about how your stuff needs to be configured for that to be like tournament legal, I guess. But like it has all the settings for it, and you can kind of configure it how you see fit. It's really interesting in Tekken. I think so. In Tekken, you don't necessarily jump all that much. I don't hit up in Tekken too frequently, especially playing as Paul. It's just, like I'm not, different characters are going to have different needs, I suppose, but Tekken, not necessarily a big, like, I'm going to do a full on jump. It's more of a sidestep, right? And so having up be on your thumb or like, okay, I guess what I'm saying is I am not as used to it in ways that are actually probably benefiting me. So my big problem, if you've watched me play fighting games for any length of time, my big problem is I am always jumping. If I am playing Street Fighter, I am jumping at you over and over again, daring you to stop me. And players above a certain level will stop me every single time. But players below a certain level will not. And since that's about the level I'm playing at, it's oftentimes worth it. But I'm not necessarily getting better at the game because I'm doing all this different shit. And so having the jump be down by my thumb, where it's a little more forgettable, because I'm so new to this controller concept, it's kind of, it's breaking it. It has the potential to break me out of that habit of jumping all the time. And I feel like I could get better at fighting games using this if I really dedicated myself to it, because it is fascinating. It's logical, I guess I would say. Some games will, because of the way the inputs work on different games, you will have kind of almost input shortcuts that a game will have built in itself, that, because of the way you're able to input on this as opposed to a joystick, it just works slightly differently. So like For example, in Street Fighter 6, when you think about a dragon punch, the classic dragon punch input is forward, then down forward, and a punch. So it's bop, 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 like almost like a little Z motion if you want. With this, I could be pushing right and walking to the right. I could then tap the down button and then hit punch, just bop, bop, and a dragon punch will come out. It's fucking crazy. It's fucking crazy. And so and even when you're not, you know, like the different ways you're kind of inputting, like you have such access to all of these inputs all at the same time, and all your fingers are always right there. And so just being able to like with Tekken, it was really awesome because I just felt like more mobile. Like I'm faster at double tap, like getting out of the way, moving in and out, like just controlling space, just spacing, getting in there, getting in that ass, getting the fuck out of the way. Like it is a big change, like mentally. And so that's why it's really hard to make some of these adjustments, because, you know, you've at this point, I've got 30 years plus of playing fighting games on joysticks or even, you know, gamepads. And I've become more of a gamepad player these days out of laziness, of just like, I don't want to clear desk space for the joystick and all this stuff. But like, this thing is like small, it's low profile, it can stay. This could conceivably stay on my desk, whereas the big ass Mad Cat stick that's, you know, relegated over here by the TV, that's just there so the kids have something to fuck around with while they're watching television. They'll just grab the joystick and start slamming buttons on it. I don't want, you know, like, I don't want to sound like a fucking zealot, because I still need to spend more time with it and still feel like really see if this all holds true. But like every time I hook this up and start playing, I've been playing Street Fighter 6 and I've been playing Tekken 8. And every time I come away from it, like, I just like kind of blown away, like, holy shit, this is so much fun to use. And it's taking a lot of work in terms of just like, I've got to relearn combos, because like there's extra mental steps you're making now because your hand's in kind of a different position. And let's face it, the ring finger on my left hand may be the weakest finger I've got. And so having that on left is, sometimes like if I'm on the right side of the screen and I'm trying to throw fireballs and that's the middle and then ring is like pop pop, like this ring finger is not always doing what I need it to do as fast as I need it to do it. And so I'm sitting here thinking, like I literally spent some time going like, how am I going to make my ring finger stronger? What am I going to do? What am I going to do to get this over the hump here? I am left-handed, but like, you know, years of right-handed controllers and all this other stuff, you know, it's like there's like this finger is the shakiest, weakest finger I've got. This is almost involuntary movement right now that it's doing. And so like it was this feeling of like, man, okay, either I need to struggle to stay on the left side of the screen, I need to move these two fingers over like I was sliding up and down a Guitar Hero guitar to keep my strong fingers in position, or I need to work on the strength of this finger to get it more in control, to get it where it needs to be. And so I don't know where that's going to go, but it's a really fucking fascinating device. And I'm hesitant to just like wholeheartedly recommend them, because again, like I've had it for 3 days, 4 days, whatever it's been, and I've just like it's all very new and it's all very fresh and all very exciting. But I will say, if you're looking for like something new and something to change it up when it comes to fighting games and kind of force you to rethink some stuff, it's been really awesome for that, because you have to kind of take a step back and think about the inputs all over again. All that muscle memory you've built up over the years comes with a lot of, in my case, a ton of bad habits as well. And so this change is got me resetting a little bit, and right now I'm worse probably with the leverless than I am on a pad or on a joystick. Though honestly, I've been playing pad so long now that I bet even joystick would be a transition for me. But it is very, it's like awesome. Like I feel like I'm doing the work. I feel like I'm like, this is the thing that is forcing me to think more about how I actually play fighting games, what the actual options at my disposal are, and how best to use those. It's shaken things up mentally for me in a way that no other input device has, and I think that's been really, so far anyway, that's been really fun. And with Tekken, I gotta say, man, again, just there's a mobility that I have in Tekken now that I have not had ever in my life when it comes to whether it's a gamepad or a joystick. Like this, just because your fingers are always right there. It's not moving a stick from right over to left and then double tapping to dash out of the way. It's just all fucking right there. Maybe that's the best way to sum it up. Every input is always right there, and you are just ever so slightly more connected to every input than you would be with a pad or with a joystick. And I think that, again, I think these is it HOT? Is that the pronounce? HOT, HAUTE 42 makes this. I bought this as soon as I got it. I upgraded the firmware on it. Like I said, it's an open source firmware, very easy to upgrade. And if you want to use it on a console, they've got some weird, you can do that. Basically, you can use it on a console, and they've jumped through some really insane hoops to make that work that are fucking fascinating. So if you remember, like, you know, Microsoft just recently had that update where they just banned a bunch of third-party controllers. And PlayStation has had like some lockout stuff, some lockout technology for a long time. So what you can do is they put a second USB port on it. You've got the USB-C that you use to connect it to the whatever device, your, you know, console or PC or Mister or whatever you're doing. And then it's got another full-sized USB. So what you can do is you can take a PS4 controller, or I think a PS5 controller, plug it in here, and it will use the authorization keys from that device to tell the PlayStation, nah, dog, this is a real controller. This is the real thing. Because otherwise, I guess they shut off, like a controller that does not authenticate with the console will shut off after 8 minutes. And so they have built a way around that. You can also, and I started down this road before realizing I did not have a PlayStation 4 controller around here somewhere. I've got one around here somewhere. But you can also take a PS4 controller and just straight up extract the keys from it. There's a Python script out there that I guess will do it. And then you can upload those files to the controller itself, and then you will not have to plug anything in there. There's also, they sell a dongle that I probably just has bootleg keys on it that you could plug into it as well. And then for Xbox, I think you just need to plug an Xbox controller into it. I don't think they have keys or anything you can extract for that, but for Xbox One, I mean, for modern Xbox. It's fascinating. And I've known that I've known that they've done controller lockout stuff for a while now. But I didn't know that they necessarily were this was the workaround for it. I wasn't sure where the workarounds were at when it came to that stuff. But it's really fascinating. And you can just load up the web interface on the controller and upload your keys that you've extracted from your controller, which is like a fun, fucking insane thing to do. And then, yeah, but I guess like the problem there, yes, as Mighty Ferret in the chat says, you can't use a DualShock 4 to play PS5 fighting games. So, you know, some games are going to support different controllers and some are not. All right. I don't know like where the game level support is for that sort of stuff. There are some PS5 fighting games that support PS4 controllers because of legacy fight stick stuff. But, you know, you'd have to investigate that on a per game basis to see exactly what you would need to do it. It's neat, though. And it got me thinking about the reasons why I hate Super Smash Brothers, because as I said, my daughter's been playing that. I hate everything about the way Smash feels. Everything about the way the character movement and everything in that game feels. And the reason why is because they always forced you to use an analog stick to do it. And that has always felt super fucking broken for me. Using the analog stick to try to dash, to try to jump reliably, to you know, double jump, and you know, the mushy feel of an analog stick to me is not conducive to the type of game that is, where you want to have some level of precision for it. I know people have been using, you know, Smash boxes for a long time. Part of me wants to, you know, configure this in Dolphin and see how it feels with buttons instead of an analog stick. My daughter would not be able to wrap her mind around it. She's really good. She uses she's playing Smash Brothers Melee with a DualSense Edge. Sweatiest hands in the game, that kid. But yeah, I don't know. Like it made me realize, like, kind of like that is my core. I have problems with Smash Brothers in terms of like the way it gets played at a high level, the way it gets played at a tournament level, where they're just like, yeah, you know, we're going to turn off all items. We're going to turn off all the fun in this game and take it super seriously, even though the developers seem to not necessarily be all that interested in that. And that always, just something about that always just rubbed me the wrong way. But like at the core of it, I think it is that analog movement that they've always forced, where it's like, oh, the D-pad, yeah, you can use that to taunt. You can't use it to actually play the video game. Like, oh, awesome. Great, thanks. But I don't know. That's neither here nor there. I think I am going to end up having to play a bunch of Smash Brothers Melee myself, because she wants to unlock more characters and she only plays on very easy. And I was looking like, oh, do I have to go play adventure mode to unlock Luigi? And I got to do this to do this. Ugh. Maybe I'll just find a save somewhere. I don't know. Smash Brothers to me should be like it should be played the same way that Mario Kart and even Mario Party are. It should just be like, fuck it, dude. Yeah, throw it on. Yay. We're doing stuff and not taking it super seriously. And I got the hammer and fuck you. Like, that's Smash Brothers to me, when people try to take all the fucking shit out of it and try to take it extremely seriously. It's just like, no, you can't play on that stage. There's only one stage you can play on and no items and this. And it's like, all right, I don't want to have this conversation. I don't want to have this conversation. And yes, that Adventure 82 says that's how most normal humans play it. I agree. That is how most normal humans play it. But anyone talking about the game online is not talking about that. All discussion about Smash Brothers online is filtered through fucking weirdos. And so you kind of have to just fucking deal with that. But whatever. I don't want to fucking waste a bunch of time talking about fucking Smash. I think this thing's fucking cool as hell. I got it off AliExpress. You can go, it's again, HAUTE 42. I guess they've been rebranding as Cosmo X as well, so you might find it under that name. These things are on Amazon, but they were slightly more expensive there, and the shipping times weren't any better. And I think AliExpress is just straight up their official store. So like, that's when you go to their website and say, where do I go to buy your thing? They point you at AliExpress. And I'm like, okay, what am I getting here? But again, this is like, it's a really sturdy, fucking very tight feeling metal device. Like it feels fucking awesome. Again, I might go with the 12 button version, because you don't necessarily have to have all these extra buttons. But I will say that having the button having a second up button that is in more of a WASD kind of configuration near the top of the controller has been really good for like transitioning and figuring out like, okay, how do I make the jump from standard controllers over to this thing? Does it have LEDs? I mean, let me just plug it in real quick. It did, yeah. I mean, it lights up. And you can set colors based on like, what color do you want it to be all the time, and then when you're pushing the button, what color do you want it to be? I don't even know if you can see the LEDs here. They're very faint, but like it will yeah, the buttons light up and you can configure it. Up here it'll tell you which buttons you're pushing. It'll tell you what it's got a little screen on it that'll tell you what input mode it's in. I have it defaulting to X input, which is the right way to do it on a PC, but it'll do D input, and you can set it up for like switch. You can tell it you're plugging it into a PlayStation Classic or like an Egret 2 Mini. They've got like modes for all these other devices, which is fucking crazy. And you can even upload a custom logo to it if you want a custom little icon to appear when you first plug it in, which I have not done yet, but I probably will. So yeah, it's fucking awesome. I don't know. Like I may spend more time with it and go like, oh, actually I found the limitation here, but I have to say it has been such a dramatic, way more dramatic than I thought it would be. I thought I would get it and be like, oh, this is too hard for me to wrap my mind around, but maybe it'll be fun to use for rhythm games or something else or whatever. But like I was able to jump in and immediately start doing stuff. I was immediately like, the translation of, what you're used to input wise over to this did not take that long for me to at least start wrapping my mind around it. I'm slower than I would be. And there's still a lot of, work to do to make it feel natural and all that sort of stuff. But I'm way more impressed with it than I thought I would be. And the open source firmware and all the other stuff. But yeah, it is the M16 Plus. The Plus is a slightly larger. They sell a smaller version of it if you've got, I don't know, tiny hands, I guess. I don't know. But the M16 Plus is it's fucking rad. It's absolutely rad. Have I tried any non-fighting games on it? A little bit, like not what I do. I hooked it up to an emulator and I was playing like 1943 with it. But I was playing Samurai Showdown 2 is what I actually hooked it up for. So I was like, oh, that's got some other kind of super inputs for, that kind of half circle back to forward. And, let me do some of this and just kind of feel how those inputs feel. And I was like, oh yeah, no, that's good. That's good right there. Like I can roll my hand through that and I can fucking make that sword blow up. And that felt pretty good. Maybe Wednesday. This week maybe we'll do some fighting games. I don't know. Maybe I'll position a camera at the controller so you can see I'll do some nice hand modeling for you. My hands right now sticky with Ric Flair juice. Yuck. Gross. Let's get to the news. Video game actors are on strike. A strike was authorized a while back, but the strike started July 26th. This is for SAG-AFTRA. And they've been in negotiations over a new contract for some time and could not come to an agreement over specifically some AI-related topics. And so as a result, a lot of those voice actors have gone on strike. There are some projects, like it was very quick to there was very quick to go, oh, GTA 6 will not be affected by this because they've got a deal in place that's that is the union is okay with and so on and so forth. SAG-AFTRA said, according to videogameschronicle.com, although agreements have been reached on many issues important to SAG-AFTRA members, the employers refuse to plainly affirm in clear and enforceable language that they will protect all performers covered by this contract in their AI language. Fran Drescher, the nanny herself, who is president of SAG-AFTRA, says, we're not going to consent to a contract that allows companies to abuse AI to the detriment of our members. Enough is enough. When these companies get serious about offering an agreement our members can live and work with, we will be here ready to negotiate. So yeah, that will, so they've been in negotiations. It's not every single publisher. It was a subgroup of publishers that, VGC has the list here. Activision, Blind Light, Disney Character Voices, EA Productions, Formosa Interactive, Insomniac, Epic, Take-Two, VoiceWorks Productions, and WB Games. I think the list is larger than that, but some of those are companies that are kind of the middleman that connects these actors to games. So Blind Light, for example, has worked on Halo and Elder Scrolls and some other stuff like that. I say, hey man, get them. The other side of this, a spokesperson for video game producers gave a comment. Audrey Cooling says, we are disappointed the union has chosen to walk away when we are so close to a deal, and we remain prepared to resume negotiations. We have already found common ground on 24 out of 25 proposals, including historic wage increases and additional safety provisions. Our offer is directly responsive to SAG-AFTRA's concerns and extends meaningful AI protections that include requiring consent and fair compensation to all performers working under the IMA, which is the Interactive Media Agreement. These terms are among the strongest in the entertainment industry, is what she says. I assume they will get back to the negotiating table sooner rather than later and get this figured out. The AI stuff, is this even going to be a concern in a year's time, 2 years' time? With how much money OpenAI is burning through with very little path to profitability. That seems to be the conversation that's been picking up over the last week or two is around all of this stuff. But yeah, that's where that stuff sits at. I assume that they will get back to the table and they will make it work eventually. Also of note here, speaking of videogameschronicle.com, congratulations to videogameschronicle.com. They went and launched a Patreon. You can support their work directly at patreon.com/videogameschronicle. And they're doing some bonus stuff over on Patreon. I signed up because it is maybe one of 3 video game websites that I read now. I think they're doing solid work over there. Keep it up. Concord. They had a second beta weekend where they let people play the game again. And this comes to us from TrueTrophies.com. They are a site that tracks PlayStation trophy unlocks. And so as a result, they have an interest in hey, how many people played a game? How many people unlocked trophies in a game and stuff? And so in some ways, they are uniquely positioned to track player data. They're also working with a company called Game Insights that provided this specific information because the Concord beta did not have any trophies associated with it. But the gist of it here is that 8% fewer players played Concord on the second free weekend as did on the first, even though on that second weekend, the game was open to more people. In the first weekend, it was originally meant to be only open to people that pre-ordered the game, and then eventually they said, actually, it's going to be open to everyone who has PlayStation Plus as well. On this second weekend, it was, in theory, open to more people, though if it's an online game, you would need PlayStation Plus to play it anyway, so maybe it's just kind of the same thing over and over again. I'm not sure how much more widely accessible it was on the second weekend, is my point here. But they are saying that the first weekend did 8% better than the second one. And they have some information about the data itself. Using a gameplay data sample from over 3.1 million active PSN accounts, courtesy of their partnership with Game Insights, they see that Concord has 8.1% fewer players in the second weekend than in the first weekend. And and it ranked number 29 for both weeks. They go on to say, while the decrease is not significant, the drop is still unexpected, given that the first beta was initially supposed to be limited to pre-orders only. So I guess, like, yeah, they were originally limited to pre-orders only, and then they opened it up to PS Plus. So technically, I think the same number of people were able to play it in both weekends, but just the initial advertising, I think the change in accessibility of who could play it when is something that they changed pretty late. They're like, oh, anyone on PS Plus can play it, which makes me wonder, did no one pre-order it because they were like, oh shit, if we're going to do an open beta and we need people to be playing the game, we need to open this up to everyone that has PS Plus because we don't have enough pre-orders to float a weekend or something. So, 8%, not a massive drop. That is a retention of, most of the players. The game's out end of August 23rd to be exact, on both PlayStation 5 and PC. I played it on PC, but I don't know. Looking at the Steam data, which is, again, none of this data is perfect data, but imperfect data is probably better than no data at all. It does not look like it necessarily burned up the Steam charts as well. And so it does make you wonder, what does the future hold for Concord? Maybe they'll get a new mayor in there, clean up the city. They could fix the mall. Something nice for the citizens of Concord, California. Meanwhile, the developers over at Firewalk have posted to Twitter their batch of post-release plans with a series of images with text on them, and I mean, the official Concord account is even paying for the expensive Twitter where they could have posted more text, but yet they still posted a bunch of screenshots of text. I don't know. Anyway, they're saying there'd be 12 maps in addition to no, I'm sorry. That includes the 5 that they put into the beta. 6 modes. But they posted a FAQ that's like, what kind of progression will be in the game? Like, well, you'll have hundreds of items to customize your free gunners, which you can earn just by playing the game, completing jobs, and leveling up your account and characters. They're all cosmetic. The big one is, will there be a battle pass? No. Concord will not have a battle pass. Concord does not have a battle pass. We wanted to focus our attention on making Concord a rewarding and robust experience on day one, where just playing the game, leveling up your accounts and characters, and completing jobs yields meaningful rewards. Will there be post-launch content? Launch is just the beginning. We will be introducing new free gunners, which are characters in their hero shooter, maps, modes, and more through regular post-launch seasons and updates available to all players at no additional cost. There's nothing in here about if they're going to sell cosmetics. So I don't know. I don't know if there is any kind of post-release monetization whatsoever, because they don't really get into it. The beta showcased the first 3 of our cinematic vignettes, which will release weekly in-game at launch. Weekly in-game at launch. So at launch, they're committing to do them weekly. All right. So yeah, they also, the last thing they addressed is someone, I guess this must be a frequently asked question, but they say, will there be any solo PvP modes like free for all? And they gave a long-winded answer that should have just said no. There's value in just saying, like, no, we don't have any plans for this at this time. I don't think that's dismissive. I don't think that comes off as like dickish or shitty. I get the desire to like try to write these long, soft answers, but they go, at launch, we'll have 6 distinct 5v5 team-based modes, which range from more approachable respawn-based modes like Trophy Hunt to more competitive modes like Cargo Run, all of which can be queued for as a solo player. We will not have solo-specific modes at launch. but our lineup will grow over time through regular content updates. We look forward to partnering with the community to help inform how we evolve the experience with new modes in the future. You could have just said that part. I don't know. Like, instead of like going back and underscoring, like, we will have 6 distinct 5v5 teams. That's not the question. The question is, will you have solo play? No? Okay. Okay. Like, it's not some sleight of hand to go like, ooh, but we're going to have this. Like, are people going to read that and go, oh, well, I will buy the game? If someone's purchase was hinging on it having solo play, they're not going to read that and go like, oh yeah, all right, I guess I am in. Like, it's just a weird, I don't know. Sometimes just people need to be straight and just say, fuck no, dude. That's not the game we're making. Like, that's not the game we're making. If you know, we're open to having discussions after the fact, but we're not. No, the characters and the models are built around 5v5 play. Not that Twitter is a good place to go for comments on anything. But there's a weird, so like, you would think that like the idea of them saying, hey, there's no battle pass, and we're going to add maps after launch, and it's going to be free, and it's going to be, yeah, we've got all these, we have all these free updates planned, and a lot of stuff that you can unlock by just playing the game. You would think that people would go, oh, that's great. Instead, it's this weird mix. And I've seen this not just on Twitter, but everyone became an armchair analyst and said, you should fucking definitely have a battle pass. You should absolutely be selling a battle pass. Also, your game should be free to play. Like, basically, you know, like, they're saying the thing that everyone says that they want. You know? Like, hey, a game free from garbage, a game free from all the monetization that everyone doesn't like in games. And there's like a non-zero, like, it's a good chunk of the responses that I've seen to this are people saying, absolutely not, man. This game should be free. You should be selling a battle pass. You should be selling all this stuff. And it's like they're coming at it from this weird angle of like, if you want this game to last, if you want this game to be successful, you got to go free to play. You need to make it free to play. You need to do this. You need to, you absolutely have to load up your game with a bunch of battle passes and bullshit. Otherwise you're dead. Otherwise your game is dead. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with the notion that I don't necessarily think that Concord is attracting an audience. Also, I don't think this game being free to play and selling a bunch of stuff would save it, because there's a lot of free to play shooters out there as well. It's not like that is a non-competitive space that would give Concord a huge leg up. They would be like, oh yeah, right, yes, we're going to crush them. It's crowded across the board. At least with the path they are on, they can say that they are doing something different and say, we are selling you a game, and that's that. Also, all of their answers are not necessarily something that will cover the entire lifetime of the game. That's all stuff they could add after the fact. There's no reason. I would expect that Concord is going to end up being a PlayStation Plus game pretty fucking early on. They're going to sell as many copies as they can. And then the minute the player base seems like it's dropping off, they're going to shove it into PlayStation Plus and say, oh shit. Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. We need people playing this game. And then on PC, that won't happen. So, you know, people will have to buy it if they want to play it on personal computers. But yeah, like, yes, I'm in some ways, I am also, yeah, Zatoichi says, baffled that they didn't put it in the premium tier from the start. Yeah, I could, after playing it a little bit, and I did not play a ton of it, but also I played about as much as I wanted to play during those beta weekends. Yeah. I'll put it to you this way. It's competitive with Foam Stars. a game that I liked well enough. You know, like Foam Stars is all right. Like I'm not, that shouldn't be like a fucking burn. Foam Stars is a decent game that no one wanted to play, and it launched on PlayStation Plus, and even there, no one played it. And they went through their seasons of content and no one cared. I think that this game will do better than that because it's first party. It will probably get more of a marketing push. They are going to try to sell it. There'll be, whatever ways that they will get it in front of people. But does this game last? Is anyone talking about this game a year from now? Who knows? I mean, I have my guesses for sure. But I guess my point is, I don't think that them going, oh, yeah, we're going to have a battle pass and we're making it free to... I don't think any of that... I don't think that changes the calculus here enough one way or the other to make that game on the other side of a line. It's not like, oh, it's going to make it. Like, if anything, like these beta weekends kind of came and went. The announcement kind of came and people were like, oh, that looks neat. Except for the part where, like it just... If anything, I think the cutscenes detract from it. Like the cutscenes having this like ultra quippy kind of Guardians of the Galaxy style thing that feels very worn out. Some people are still interested in that, I guess. They must be. But like, Jesus Christ, man. I think that there's a disconnect between what that is and what the game is. The game is like a pretty standard feeling hero shooter. It's okay. It's got some modes in it. It feels fully featured for the type of game that they're trying to make. I don't think that them having these little vignettes, these little miniature cutscenes where, characters get together and tell some jokes and let you in on a little bit of like information about the universe as they go. I don't think that's interesting. Like I don't think the lore of most of these games, like, think about Overwatch. Think about, they have a built-in lore because of what that game was before they put it out, right? There's so much shit that came along with Overwatch as a result of it, twisting and turning internally before they finally just said, like, I guess it's a multiplayer shooter. I don't know. Shit, man. Do you think a lot of, and I guess I don't know the answer to this question. People like Overwatch characters, especially when they are naked. But do people give a shit about the lore of Overwatch? Like, oh, well, Overwatch is fighting against this other faction and Overwatch has to, like when they first launched and kind of put that in front of people's faces early on in Overwatch 1, I think there was a moment where people were like, okay, all right, what are you going to do with that? And the answer was absolutely nothing. And I don't think that the success of that game had anything to do with them really giving a shit about the lore one way or the other. The people that were into it. They never really took it anywhere. And then when it came time for them to try to make it, a single player, like try to come up with PvE content and all the other stuff that they kind of fumbled the ball on over and over again, that was their other opportunity to try to do this stuff. And they did it and people were not there for it. Whether that's a problem with the quality of the content or just people not conceptually interested in that stuff. There's nothing wrong. Yeah, yes, people like extra shit. There's nothing wrong with having that stuff there. Like you should. If the options are lore or no lore, you might as well have lore. It probably helps you more internally than anything else when you're trying to like build the universe out and figure out what this stuff is and what fits into this universe and what doesn't. Like if you've got that lore book, even if you never show it to anyone, at least you've got like a shared document that you can look at and go like, okay, we're coming up with new characters for season 8. And then someone says like, what if we put in Slim Goodbody from the, from the old PBS, remember him? And you're like, no, that is not the Overwatch lore. No, we have a book here that states that like, if you want to put a monkey in the game, yeah. Or some pretty ladies, sure. But Slim Goodbody, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like it gives them some sort of place to start from. So yeah, I don't know. I'm never going to be anti-lore, but I also feel like I've watched so many players and seen the details and percentages and whatever else of people skipping every cutscene in a game, especially multiplayer games. And just not giving a shit about that, of just like, let me run to the icon and shoot things, in whether it's, Borderlands or, don't get me, let's not have a conversation about the Borderlands lore. But World of Warcraft, like they need to have those pages of text there, but everyone just scrolled to the bottom and said, "Are we killing 10 rats? We're killing 10 rats. Okay, let's go kill 10 rats." What did Van Cleef do to deserve his fate? I couldn't tell you. Someone could. I just knew he had a sick boat, and we ran through the boat and killed his ass. But I couldn't tell you a goddamn thing about Van Cleef. Is he related to Lee Van Cleef? I hope so. So yeah, I don't know. In most games, I guess in most multiplayer games, lore feels like it is something that is nice to have, but so many players seem to treat it as something that is in the way. A cutscene that needs to be skipped, or like, oh, we were doing this 4-player co-op and this guy, everyone needed to hit start to skip the cutscene, and this guy wanted to watch the fucking cutscene of all things. Like, what the fuck are you, especially in games where you're rerunning the same missions and things over and over and over and over again. Like, that stuff wears thin fast, right? So yeah, I don't know, man. I guess I will say that I think that the way that they're presenting the universe in Concord just doesn't seem like that interesting. The idea of like, hey, unless they've got big plans for something down the line, right? Like, where does that lead? Because right now they're like, oh, we're going to have a weekly they're even calling them vignettes. Not full scenes, because they feel like skits almost. The 3 that they put, I saw 2 of the 3 that they put into the beta, and they were all just like, here's little things, and like we've tried to really imbue these things with character because they're short and we need to get these points across quickly. So we need to go bang, bang, bang. This is the goofy character. The robot acts like this. This guy's all gung ho, and the ship computer is going to do this. And like, they're really kind of trying to drill that into you over the course of this, because it's kind of all they have. Or at least it's like, that's the indication, right? And if they have way more, then maybe that means they'll just dole out these tiny cutscenes for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And if they eventually get to a point where they trade off of that in a more meaningful way, then perhaps it will have all been worth it. It's just hard for me to think, again, in terms of like players playing this game, players caring about this game. I don't think that that's going to be the thing that sways anyone one way or the other. I don't think the part where they go like, oh, I liked the part where the robot was funny. I don't think that's going to do it here. Unless down the line they have grand ambitions about like, oh, also we're eventually going to blow this out into a big PvE thing. We're going to do the thing that Overwatch said they wanted to do. And now there's a story mode coming into the game, Titanfall 1 style or something, or however they do it. But like, it's just a weird. It's a weird concept, but I guess I have to say I appreciate that they are trying to do something. They're trying to find a way to make a multiplayer focused game and try to like build it out and make it matter in ways that other games sometimes don't. So like, good on them for like coming to this concept of like, hey, we're going to make this game feel alive by adding another one of these scenes every week or whatever. And I wonder if it's a situation where if you buy that game like 2 years later, assuming they're still doing weekly cutscenes 2 years from now, but let's say, do you start with the first one or do you start with the current one? You know what I mean? Like, will they, or will they have like starting points of like, if I buy the game in week 2, will I see the week 1 cutscene ever, or is it just gone? That would be kind of weird to do that work and then be like, well, if you don't play the game every week, I guess you're just fucked. Like, that's weird too. Maybe they'll just have a menu where you can go back and watch them. I assume they would. But I almost wonder if it would be better, at least in the near term, if they were like, hey, when you start, almost like the play date. When you turn on your play date, you start getting season 1 of video games, even if the full season's already out. Of just like, hey, on week 1, on your week 1, you will see the week 1 cutscene. Because it's not like, and maybe I'm wrong there too, but I would say, but it doesn't seem like those cutscenes are going to be so relevant that you need, like, oh, did you see this week's cutscene? That means there's going to be low gravity on all levels, or some gameplay change that's going to happen as a result of that week's cutscene. They almost should do that. Like if there was some kind of relevant tie-in to be like, all right, what planet are we going to this week? And they've got like weekly modifiers. Like, here's the weekly mutators. It's fucking all rail guns and low gravity. Go nuts. And use that to slightly change the rules of the levels from time to time or something. But I don't know. Anyway, I found it interesting that apparently due to this tracking that like week 2 did worse than week 1, even though weekend 2 was supposed to be available to more players. That probably doesn't say good things about players' interest in Concord. That like word of mouth over that week did not travel enough to people like, oh, well, when they turn it back on, I better get in there. Like, it does not seem like that happened. So, we'll see. Game's out in about a month. Comic-Con happened. San Diego style. Which means they put French fries in it, I think. Only news I found coming out of this that seemed like it mattered, or, well, I guess, that's why the Marvel Rivals. Actually, just to touch on Concord for a little bit, it probably did not help that Marvel Rivals had their beta live at the same time, or just, I guess, like not long after the second weekend of Concord. So that's, I mean, that's a game that could steal some thunder regardless of the quality of the game, just because of just like player interest in it. I mean, it's like, I know Gearbox was not thrilled when they were trying to get Battleborn off the ground, and then suddenly there was an Overwatch 2 beta that was getting promoted over the release of their game. I think is how that went. Is that more people were interested in the Overwatch beta than were ever interested in buying Battleborn. Not a ton of video game news out of Comic-Con. I feel like over the years, the video game presence at Comic-Con, as someone who has never gone personally, but has like tried to see like what announcements came out of Comic-Con this year, it feels like the video game content has been sliding for like much of the last decade, if not more. The only big thing I saw there was that they confirmed the story-based DLC for Mortal Kombat 1. It's going to be called Chaos Reigns. That's Chaos with a K. Of course. That's of course with a K. Of course. That's of course with a C. This will be a continuation to the story, much like they did with the previous game where they released the Aftermath DLC. And that was a big chunk. Aftermath was a good long story chunk. There was a fun follow-up on the story of Mortal Kombat 11. And this is going to also include the Season Pass 2, like another 6 characters got announced along this. They, according to Eurogamer, there's a bit of text out there about the content of the story, as well as the trailer. When a perilous threat arrives from an alternate timeline, if you remember, Mortal Kombat 1 is a big multiple timeline, multiverse kind of thing. And they do some really fun stuff with that at various points in the storyline, and it's exciting. When a perilous threat arrives from an alternate timeline led by the ruthless Titan Havoc, whose sole mission is to throw the realms into chaos, Liu Kang must rally his champions and put faith in his enemies to defeat this grave danger. If they fail, the new era will be reduced to anarchy. Havoc is dumb. Havoc is not a big bad guy. Havoc is, I don't care what alternate universe you pull a version of Havoc from. Havoc is not a name that imbues you with fear. It's a weird choice. He's a fucking idiot with his stupid turning his head around like a goofball. They could have put like a Shu Hao or somebody in here. If they wanted like fucking dumb characters from that era, they could have fucking they could have made better choices, I guess. I don't know. Better in quotes, of course. Another batch of characters will be released alongside this. Half of season 2 is going to come with or be released at the same time as this DLC, with 3 more coming after the fact. They will not. Okay, so Eurogamer is reporting that they will not be selling this second season of characters as a standalone character bundle. So I assume that means they will sell the characters separately, but maybe not even that. What they will be doing is that those characters will come with this big story DLC add-on. This season of characters will include Noob Saibot, Cyrax, and Sector, which will all have, because of the nature of the story in Mortal Kombat 1, they will all have kind of different stories and origins than they have had in the past. These appear to be Robot, Cyrax, and Sector, which is interesting. They've been in human form and not in human form and all this other stuff, depending on the timeline. And they look fucking cool. I looked at them and went, yeah, these are ladies now, by the way. They did the thing. Not with, they have made lady robot ninjas, and it's fucking good. They have not met my demands of let's make Scorpion a pretty lady, though I do think a lady Scorpion does show up in that one chapter of the story mode if you play it enough times. Scorpion should be a pretty lady. They should make Scorpion a pretty lady. They should make Scorpion a pretty lady. Yeah, so that's pretty awesome. And then there'll be 3 guest characters. It is Ghostface from Scream, which feels like it's, I don't know, 10 years in the making or something. How long has someone affiliated with the Mortal Kombat franchise been posting images of Ghostface from Scream? It is finally happening. The T-1000, the Robert Patrick Terminator from Terminator 2, and Conan the Barbarian. So that Conan will look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. The T-1000 will have Robert Patrick's voice, but the Conan character will not have Arnold Schwarzenegger's voice. But it will have the likeness. So I don't know. Yes, there was just a new Scream movie, so it is synergy for them to finally get Ghostface. I can't do it. I cannot fucking. I don't care how. Like, even in this Eurogamer article, they have written Scream's Ghostface, and I'm still like, yes, Ghostface, yes. Put the fucking golden hawk on the arm like he was in the fucking Wu-Tang fighting game, and put. They should put Ghostface Killer in Mortal Kombat. They should do that. I think that would be good. I forgot. I loaded the game up the other day. Yeah, because there were characters I had not used or anything like that, and so I forgot that they put Takeda in the game, and he's a lot of fun. And they added new cameo characters like the lady, like Janet Cage, the multiverse lady version of Johnny Cage. They put her in as a cameo character, and that's fun. I like that they're having fun with it. I I feel like I don't know. I liked Mortal Kombat 1. I feel like that a lot of people hit the wall with this one in terms of this fighting style. I mean, obviously Evo just happened. Do you think that what do you think needs to change? Do you think anything needs to change? I think that they need to I think they're at a point where they need to have a good overhaul to a lot of their systems and fighting and everything. They're due for it again. I talk about that a lot. That they've, had 3 or 4 or 5 games that play this same basic way, and that a more dramatic change needs to happen with that game. Do you think that Sonic Fox winning over and over again speaks well of those games or not? I think it's awesome that Sonic Fox is so fucking amazing at these video games. But also, does that speak to maybe there are not enough people playing these games? Or is it? Yeah, I don't know the answer. The Sonic Fox is fucking incredible. But like when you see a lot of these other, I mean, obviously there are players that are at or near the top of these tournaments year in, year out. But when it comes to Evo and number of entrants at Evo, which again is not the number of entrants at Evo does not necessarily correspond to how many copies of a game you sold. So it's at the end of the day, maybe it doesn't matter. I'm more talking about it from a high level competitive play sort of thing. Like, does something need to change and be shaken up there just to kind of, I don't know. I like Sonic Fox a lot. I think like I did eventually go back and watch some VODs. But like watching high level Mortal Kombat play doesn't, like modern Mortal Kombat doesn't really do anything for me. I just watch it and go like, yep, you sure did fucking whip the shit out of that. Like, yeah, you absolutely, you knew how to do this fucking thing real well that I will never be able to time properly because the timing air combos, especially in Mortal Kombat 1, which is a little more focused on air combos. Yeah, I guess maybe it's not necessarily that those things are connected at all. Like it's great that Sonic Fox has like been amazing at this game, at these games for so long, but also separately, I would really like to see them make more dramatic changes to it. Maybe that has nothing to do with what high level competitive. At the end of the day, who cares about high level competitive play? It's fun to watch sometimes in some games, but yeah, they want $50 for this add-on, which is going to get you the 6 characters as well as the Chaos Reigns story. I think that $50 is a lot of money, but it depends on how long that story is. And they'll bundle the two things together. I don't know how much they'll charge for a full-on bundle with everything. I guess I would say it depends on how much how much story there is to it, like how long is the Chaos Reigns content. If it is as long or if it is 2/3 or however as long as the main story mode, that sounds fucking awesome. I don't know. They're also adding animalities to the game when this comes out, which will be fun. But yeah, I would like to think that they will put a bunch of fucking shit into this thing, especially if they're going to be charging that. Yes, animalities will be free in theory. Like obviously, if you don't own the characters, you can't play as them and do the animalities. But yes, animalities will be available to everyone, not just the people that buy the add-on. And we'll see how all that goes. Yeah, I don't know. Like, as someone who really, really liked the story of Mortal Kombat 1 and really likes the way they do story modes, I would love to see another story, much like with Aftermath. I would love to see where this story goes from here, because the end of Mortal Kombat 1, the things they do with the multiverse, the things they do with the different types of characters and different multiverse versions of characters. I hope that this, by using the word chaos, I hope we're not just talking about the chaos realm, but I hope that it is also an incredibly chaotic thing where they are making you fight against fucking insane, weird, fake versions of characters all the time from different weird timelines. Like my Lady Scorpion. She's a pretty lady. Oh, she's a pretty lady. They also added a bunch of when I loaded the game up. This is something they announced at alongside this. Is they added they gave a free Scorpion skin to everybody, pattern after the first Mortal Kombat movie. They called it like Scorpion 95, which is that's such a fucking Mugen kind of fucking name. But they are also selling classic skins for a lot of the other ninjas. You can go get like UMK3 Rain, which is not in, he was not in there. Other than in the attract mode. Or I guess anyway. But you know, you can buy I guess they will have Ermac skins, and they're selling like a movie version of a reptile skin in there as well, and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, I don't know, man. I'm down to play more of that, you know? Like I spent a lot of time with Mortal Kombat 1 just playing through the story mode and then really wringing every bit of content out of that first season. And then when the next season rolled out and it was just kind of more of the same, I checked out. I was like, you know what? I'm good. There was a while there that I was like, I'm going to get every single trophy in Mortal Kombat 1 because I had damn near all of them. But some of them were like, you need to go into the invasion mode and go beat a Titan and go do this and get this score on this tower mode. And like the last few of them, I just kind of petered out on and went like, all right, I think I'm okay. But with a batch of new story content and some fun new characters to use, you know, and we'll see. Like, I wonder if they will add more cameos. They didn't necessarily say they were doing so, but I wonder if new cameos will come along with this as well. You know, the door would be open at this point, I would think, to add some more of that. So maybe there's still more to announce. I wonder. Did they put a date on this? It's September, right? It is September 24th. So not that far out. And Cyrix and Sector look really good. The guest characters, again, you know. It'll be fun to watch the intros for the guest characters. That's always the most fun. I feel like that's the only like really entertaining thing I get out of that is like, let's watch John Cena talk to Scorpion. You know? so that stuff was a lot of fun. It'll be neat to see how they react to. Like, it was fun to watch like in the last game. Like, oh, what do they, when they see RoboCop or Rambo, how do they react? And I think that's fun. But as far as like playable characters and whatever else, like, I kind of go either way. We've seen some unionization happening in video games, specifically, I guess, at Microsoft-owned studios. There was some stuff out of Bethesda, and now the developers of World of Warcraft, the WoW team at Blizzard. So I guess like not all of Blizzard, but they have formed a union, according to Bloomberg. They're supported by the Communications Workers of America. The CWA has been kind of involved in a lot of attempts at kind of unionizing game developers and stuff. So Microsoft has recognized the union. And according to Bloomberg, this brings the number of unionized U.S. gaming employees at Microsoft to around 1,750. And this includes multi-discipline people across multiple disciplines. It's not just like the QA department unionized or anything. This is designers, producers, QA, artists, like, you know, a good variety of people across multiple disciplines, which is cool. You know, the name of it is the World of Warcraft Game Makers Guild. And that is the name of the new union that they have formed. This is a bad. Look. I don't like this, but it's fine. Here's the quote that Eric Lanham, is a test analyst on World of Warcraft, gave. This is not the full quote. The rest of the quote is fine. But through our union, we're ready to tank any obstacles, heal any wounds, and DPS through the challenges ahead. Together, we will ensure a full tier set bonus with the inclusion of all job titles in the same union. You didn't need to do that. You just didn't need to. But that's good, you know, especially, you know, we think about Microsoft and how they have been with some studios lately. That you wonder if how they were with some of these recent studio shutdowns is what pushed some of these people over the edge to go like, now we're starting a union. Like we're not gonna let this happen to us, at least not without a fight. And this is the only way that they can kind of fight. And I think that's outstanding and more power to them. I'm surprised that more developers across Activision have not done this as well, that it's like limited to World of Warcraft and it wasn't like, hey, also some of these other games, you know, like, hey, the Hearthstone team has jumped in, you know, like there's that it's kind of focused specifically on WoW and not just a more wide attempt at like all of Blizzard or all of Activision Blizzard, really. But got to start somewhere, and this is where they started. Someone needs to like drop some leaflets into the Call of Duty pit, you know? Like, hey, it doesn't need to be like this. You know, it doesn't need to be like this, right? Through the union, we finally prestiged and reset back to level 1 with fairness for all of our, you know, the statement writes itself. Speaking of Call of Duty, this had been, they had been promising this for a little while and it finally came along. Activision released a white paper, meaning a PDF. They put out a PDF, a pretty long breakdown on some testing they did regarding skill-based matchmaking. They've done this in the interest of transparency for their community because obviously skill-based matchmaking has been something of a weird talking point in the Call of Duty community for a while. I mean, to the point where one of XDefiant's like defining points when they were announcing the game and getting it out there was, we've got no skill-based matchmaking. And if you don't know, skill-based matchmaking is something that's designed that when you hit, I want to play this game, it goes and finds an appropriate match for you to play in. Skill-based matchmaking means it takes how good you are at the game into account, and thus tries to find players that are at or near your skill level to ensure that everyone has a good, fair time. That's the stated goal, right? So Activision, turns out, has been doing some A/B testing on this stuff, and they have at times disabled skill-based matchmaking for a subset of their players, and they posted the results of this. And this is a fascinating, if you are interested in like some real fucking down and dirty details on how these goddamn games get made and how much thought and how many smart people have to spend so many hours coming up with this stuff and figuring it out and solving these problems for millions of players. The big ass PDF that they put out is a fascinating read. But to break it down into points, videogameschronicle.com, patreon.com/videogameschronicle, if you will, has broken a lot of this stuff down as well. And basically what they found was that when they turned it off for some chunk of the people, those people quit the game more frequently. They were less likely to search for another match. They left games more often. Like the metrics that they track to be like, hey, are people having a good time or a bad time? The good time meter went down, bad time meter go up. Basically is the breakdown here. That when you're thrown against people that are significantly better at you and they just fucking blow you out, why would you go play it again? This is common fucking sense. This shouldn't even be a goddamn conversation. And yet, like, there are so many fucking dipshit fucking streamers out there who have been the ones really driving this conversation when they are the exact opposite of the people that you should be listening to when you're making a video game that is played by millions and millions and millions of people across a wide variety of skill sets. The idea that these fucking twisted fucks just want to be like, oh, I'm tired of having to play good every time I play the game. Well, you're good at it. Deal with it. Maybe if you were worse at the game, you'd have a better time. You did this to yourself, dumbass. Like, just because you want to like stunt on stream and be like, I'm getting all these kills and doing 360 no scopes, and all that, like, fuck off. Fuck off. Sincerely, everyone else who plays the goddamn game. And so just the very idea that this is even still a conversation, you know what? It gets my goat. Just the very idea that people are still talking about skill-based matchmaking like it's something that like is ruining a video game. It's like, no, fuck you. Just because you stream a game doesn't give you some special rights to like fucking like, oh, stomp on other players and like, no, well, I'm making less money because I'm not as good at the game when I have to play against people that are good. Like, all right, yeah, I don't know, fucking update the firmware on your Cronus, dog. I don't know what the fuck to tell you. So it's really like just it's an incredibly dumb conversation, and it's kind of awesome that Activision did all this A/B testing and then put this fucking document out and said, "Look at this. This is why we do this." Like the document doesn't end with them saying, "Oh, by the way, get fucked, you assholes," but it should. Because these numbers prove what I feel like you would look at as common sense. It's common sense that if players play a game and get the fucking absolute shit kicked out of them, that they don't learn anything from that loss. They don't gain anything. They probably don't gain a lot of points that way. They're not leveling up. You know, the hooks are not getting into them. They're playing the game less when those sorts of situations happen. And they're not being given the opportunity to get better. They're not being given the opportunity to find what their true skill, trademark, actually is. If they're just getting the shit beat out of them over and over again, because they're playing 5 rounds of it and being like, fuck this. And let's face it, the business of Call of Duty, now more than ever, revolves around people wanting to play more Call of Duty and perhaps buying a skin. The only people that are going to buy skins are people that are playing the game on a regular basis. So the business reasons for like, hey, let's have people play the game more, not less, are also pretty clear. Let's let new players have a chance to get their feet wet and maybe join this community. And maybe some of them will be amazing at the game someday. Maybe some of them will be just okay. With a large number of players that play Call of Duty, it's one of the few games out there to where all players of all skill levels can be equally yoked in these matches. And so skill-based matchmaking is a fucking great thing that happened all these years ago for a wider array of players that want to play these games. Period. So it's nice that they put this out. And they put out like very good details about like, here's how this stuff works. And I sat down while I was doing, you know, my ring finger workouts, trying to get it stronger for fighting games, and read the document. And it is fascinating. It is a good, fascinating level of detail about how matchmaking works in general and how they do the things that they do and their findings. And I think their findings are very interesting. And like at best, I feel the conversation around skill-based matchmaking is a misunderstanding, but more often than not, it is driven by this like weird, sick urge to be like, I want to stunt on people on streams. And I'll say again, you know, this is something that will, this is something that I will be saying again later this week if this schedule that I'm looking at is going to hold true. When you've got like big pro players and streamers involved in your game, or perhaps like investing in your game, I am automatically significantly less interested in it. Midnight Society, the developers behind that game that Dr. Disrespect was said to be a part of, they came out there this week and said, yeah, he was never involved in game development. Like, he was not making the game. Like, the whole point was we brought him in so that he would, you know, attract people to the game and that he would play it on stream and that more people would play the game because it would get a higher profile by virtue of him having an audience. Obviously, that's not going to help them now. Even if they did stick with that guy, it's not going to be helpful to them anymore. But I think when developers try to pursue that as an angle, and not to say that I think that there are plenty of streamers and plenty of people that play these types of shooters on a regular basis that would probably make good consultants. People that you could bring in and be like, hey, what do you think of the feel of this? What do you think of this? But my general feeling is that if your game launch is built around a list of high profile players, and you're trying to say, look at this, look at what we did. We got these high profile players who are now financially obligated to play said game on their popular live streams. I think you're already in the fucking hole, man. Like, it's very easy to look at that and go like, does that mean the game is shit? And so you had to go and pay these people or incentivize them in other ways to get them to play the game at all? And that's your entire marketing plan? Or what? That's something we'll revisit in the very near future, I'm sure. The Xbox 360 marketplace closed down yesterday. They had some deep discounts and some sales and stuff at the end there to kind of blow some games out at the very end. Games that are Xbox 360 games but are still backwards compatible on newer Xbox consoles are still purchasable. And so you can still find those, but the on-console experience for the 360 is now shut down. You can't just log in and buy stuff. That's done. As well as on PC. Though, like I said, some of that stuff will still exist on the PC store and whatever else. There's a good chunk of games that are now gone. Something like 200 games that will no longer be available in any other format. And that is unfortunate. Some of those cases, you're going to run into situations where, like, because this probably would have taken backwards compatibility would have required new business terms to be made with the developer or publisher of the game. And some of those developers and publishers are just straight up gone. Like, the idea that 50 Cent Blood on the Sand was able to make its way onto the backwards compatibility list always weirded me out because THQ doesn't exist anymore. But someone bought those rights, and so someone must have been in a position to sign that deal to make that happen. But there are a lot of situations. Remember Poker Smash? That got, I think, just straight up delisted off of the Xbox 360 completely, unless you already owned it. Games like Outrun 2 was delisted. I mean, games have been delisted off of that store a lot over the years. But now it's gone. Or rather, I guess I should say it's gone and now left to the realm of, a lot of other unavailable games, to where now, in a lot of these cases, piracy is going to be your only option. Do you want to play Poker Smash on a personal computer? You can. And it's a great game. It's still a great game. But I don't know. This is, your purchases still work. Xbox Live still works on an Xbox 360. This is the shutdown of the store. And as much as these things shouldn't have to happen. We should live in a world where this doesn't need to occur. My guess on this front, and I think I said this back when they first made the announcement, because they gave people plenty of notice here. Security. Keeping up with, because you're accepting credit cards on these devices. And if you're going to do that, you have to make sure that the Xbox 360 is completely secure and is still secure and is not vulnerable to any other problems that is going to allow people to steal credit cards or steal service or steal whatever. And as new things come along, if you're going to continue to support that device, you need to be able to continue to support it well. Because you're running a storefront, you've got people's credit card details on file. You've got a lot of situations there where you could run into a lot of very big problems. And so my guess here is that faced with like the costs of maintaining the Xbox 360 marketplace set against the amount of money the Xbox 360 marketplace brings in these days, and how many players are still using it. You can still re-download your existing purchases. They didn't shut that off yet. I look at that and make the assumption that, like, at some point the amount of money it would have taken to keeping it running based on usage, based on upkeep and all of that just didn't make sense anymore. And that's a decision that I think companies make all the time. It's unfortunate. This shouldn't have to happen. And I shouldn't have to talk like, at the end of the day, the internet will provide. Game publishers are never going to be your friends on game preservation, no matter how many times they try to beat the drum on it and try to claim that they care about it. They're never going to care about it the same way that you do. And so you just can't count on them because they've got their business interests in mind as well. They can't just keep things up and running out of the goodness of their heart anymore. And that's that, man. Nintendo did the same thing when they shut down their stuff, right? And now you've got a community of people trying to restore a lot of that functionality on the 3DS and Wii U. And they're doing impressive work. If you want to dig into that, it's neat. It's very interesting, the stuff that they're doing. There is a replacement for the original Xbox Live on original Xbox hardware that you can get and use that supports a good number of games, that is all completely community driven. And that stuff is incredibly fascinating. That shouldn't have to happen. But like, at the same time, you kind of understand why, from just a raw dog business reason perspective, why this sort of stuff happens. It's frustrating. I'll be curious to see, like, how long does Xbox Live stay up on an Xbox 360? Because you can still connect and play games and do all of that. Is that something that will there eventually be a shutdown there? What will happen with the Switch? Will Nintendo eventually shut down the Switch store? You have to assume yes. When will the PS3 store go away? What will be the paths of these? Because once you remove, at least from the perspective of, hey, we ripped out the store, but you can still download your stuff. Downloading your stuff is kind of whatever. It's like, okay, we leave these servers up and then they should work. We don't need to transact payment histories and payment information all that much. We just need to know who has access to what. And we have a database over here that says that, and whatever. And so I bet the costs on that are not nearly as insane as like the human cost, the developer cost of like, okay, we've got to go in, we've got to release new Wii U firmware because we need to fucking update the entire store because this credit card situation has changed and this is not secure anymore. And so we've got to update like SSL. We've got to update all these encryptions and this and that, there's so much stuff there. That you have to stay on top of if you are continuing to run it from a business perspective. And stuff like the Wii U, the Miiverse, you shut that down for moderation reasons, right? You're like, okay, well, if we're going to run this, we have to make sure we're moderating it so that people aren't selling heroin on the Wii U. Like they were the GameFAQs message boards or something. So like, I get it. It sucks. It's fucking terrible. It's like, just from a games availability perspective, I think it's awful that people are no longer able to buy those games and find those games and everything else. Of course, there are always alternative means for this sort of stuff. Again, the internet provides when it has to. It shouldn't have to. But here we are. In 6 days, the PlayStation VR 2 app will be available on Steam. That's right. We're right around the corner from the sales of the adapters that will let you hook a PSVR 2 up to a PC. Reminder that this comes with a great deal of drawbacks. compared to the default PlayStation 5 experience where you get HDR and a lot of rumble and feedback and a lot of cool stuff there. That is not going to be available when you hook the device up to a PC, which in a lot of ways feels like it defeats the effing purpose of it. Like, oh, it'd be cool if we could do eye tracking and some of the, it'd be cool if developers could leverage this stuff. Not that they're going to, because they have to make games for all headsets, not just this headset. But it just feels like this could have been cool or a lot cooler than it will end up being. But that said, if you were someone who bought a PSVR 2 and you're like, what the fuck, what did I do? This thing was more expensive than a PlayStation. Now you can spend a small amount of additional money and you can play the games that are available on Steam. And so you can play Half-Life Alyx, I guess. And some of this other stuff that did not come out on the PlayStation 5. Also, yes, there was quite a big discount on the PSVR 2, at least in the UK. I don't know if that ended up being mirrored worldwide. All the reports I saw were just in United Kingdom money. But yeah. You'll have to get a DisplayPort cable, and the controllers will connect via Bluetooth, so you'll need a Bluetooth adapter if you don't already have one. It's possible that the Breakout box has Bluetooth built into it. I don't know for sure. I would like to try one out, but yeah, you will need to install this app off of Steam if you want to have it, the PlayStation VR 2 interact with Steam VR, basically. That's a heck of a headset, but like the stripped features that you don't get when you hook it up to a PC hurts. That hurts. Okay, so they're blowing it out in the US too. So, well, blowout is a relative term. $350 for a PSVR 2 here in the States on their site. That sounds like we're getting out of the VR business type of money to me. That's still a lot of money, but between the release of this app and them cutting the price quite a bit there, that sounds an awful lot like, oh, we're not going to support this thing anymore. If third-party developers want to publish on the PS5, we will happily let them. I think if you were going to buy a headset, considering the limitations when you plug a PSVR 2 into a PC, I think if you were specifically going to buy a VR headset right now, I would probably get a Quest 3. Maybe wait for the holidays and see if the Quest 3 prices get any better. They were just, when Amazon did its deal days or whatever, they knocked $70 off of the Quest 3 there for a couple of days, and I almost bought one, but no. No. Wall Street Journal has a new report about Twitch.tv, which is a website where you can live stream damn near anything. Originally, they just wanted people playing video games on there, but at some point they were like, fuck it, man. Like, do whatever within reason. It's neat. I think it's an okay website. I think it's got a pretty decent experience. I think they could support more fun modern video codecs, but hey, what are you going to do? Wall Street Journal has a report. Basically, the report is that, hey, Twitch is not making enough money, which lines up. The CEO of Twitch, Dan Clancy, Eurogamer, points out that Clancy said at the beginning of the year that the company was not profitable. Amazon paid $1 billion. I forgot that it was this much money. They paid close to $1 billion for Twitch. When was that? That was was that 2014? Yeah. A decade ago. They purchased Twitch, which was an independent company prior to that. And there's not much detail here other than like, yeah, man. Like, yeah. Why would it be? A spokeswoman for Amazon told Wall Street Journal that they always took the long view on Twitch and noted its ability to attract harder to reach audiences, and the company said it remains confident in Twitch's potential. The gist of this story, as Eurogamer is breaking it down, is basically that you know, the people at Twitch are worried that another big round of layoffs could be coming. If you remember, they did cut 500 jobs earlier this year and then cut almost that many last year as well. And so the concern is that they will end up in the same Amazon bucket as Goodreads or Woot, brands that Amazon bought, that there's just like, well, this is still running, but we're not going to invest in this stuff ever again. They just rolled out a new mobile app. Twitch is an interesting beast, man. Twitch is a very... And you look at the different ways that they try to monetize, and they're trying to you know, appeal to the streamers, to keep the streamers streaming and trying to offer them better deals where they can, while also not being profitable otherwise. And so I think they're trying to straddle this really weird line. And, you know, Twitch's primary source of income, I'm guessing here, but like, it's probably not their cut of subs or Twitch Turbo subscriptions. It is probably advertising, right? Ads, ad deals, sponsorships, all of that. And I don't know, like, when you look at it that way, Twitch is in the same battle that every video game website on the internet, every website on the internet is troubled with, is like, hey man, we're trying to fucking sell more fucking ads. And Twitch has inventory out the ass to sell. Because, like, look at the number of people streaming on Twitch. The problem is, and I've talked about this before, because, you know, there was a while there that I worked for the company that was selling ads for Twitch, that controlled Twitch's ad inventory. And I think the same problems were there then. Advertisers, and so this is something you also run into with message boards and stuff like that. Advertisers will view a lot of like smaller streams as way less, like if their ads, like, they might appear in front of the same number of people, but there's more prestige in being on the big streams than there are being like, oh, well, we bought run of sight ads that just like, they show up everywhere. And like, you know, even if this person is streaming to 2 people and it's a bad quality experience, or even if this person is running a bootleg stream of Monday Night Raw, our ad's going to show on the front of that, and you know, whatever else. There's just a lot of inventory. There are always a lot of people viewing things on Twitch, though it sounds like maybe fewer than before in terms of overall website size. The Eurogamer's reporting here from analytics and security firm Anoka Deepfield. Twitch has dropped from the 4th largest source of US web traffic in 2014 to the 18th. You could maybe argue that other companies have fucking come out. And Dave Gagball asks, how can Kick have a Formula One car and Twitch not? Well, Kick is a much smaller website that has to establish itself, so it makes these stunt-like purchases to try to build a name for itself. Also, Kick is largely funded by gambling money. They're backed by like some kind of gambling website. And so that whole operation feels like it is built on filth, maybe? Like, forget people streaming gambling on the site. Like, the origins of it, the original money from it, seems like it is coming from gambling. And so the whole push of that site, at least out of the gate, is like, hey, can we get more people to gamble? I feel like the Kick conversation, like when Kick first showed up and they were like, we're offering a better split than Twitch is, There were a few people that went over there and discovered that they were having a very bad time streaming on Kick and stopped. Obviously, you have the massive big streamers that were able to bring their audiences with them because now they're unfiltered and they're doing late night streams. We're on a boat fucking getting coked up and fucking there are ladies here. I don't know. Like every time I fucking load up a Kick stream, I'm like, this seems like I'm about to watch a fucking crime happen. And not like a fun to watch crime. It's not like a live leak. Like, oh, look at this. It's always just like, what seedy fucking garbage is happening here in this dimly lit room? It's like watching fucking Uno Xbox Live cameras. It's fucked, man. There's just something real fucking nasty about that website. You're just like, this. And then next to that is someone doing like GTA role play. And you're like, well, which one am I going to click on here? I don't know. Both are apparently being watched by tens of thousands of viewers. I'm sure that's real and legit. You think? You think they inflate the numbers? It's certainly possible. I don't know one way or the other. I don't really care. Anyway, whatever. Kick is whatever. Whatever, man. Twitch, you know, I think the Twitch problem is like, you know, the same problem that any ad-based business is encountering right now, where like a lot of advertising is really fucked up. Twitch does a better job or a more invasive job of making its ads harder to block than the average website. And so I'm sure that cat and mouse game probably helps them at least to some degree. But you do start to wonder, like, what does the future for Twitch hold? It's still an incredibly large website. You know, they're still trying to get out there and make deals and stream a lot of different stuff. But I don't know, like when you look at like what should Twitch change to make it more appealing / more profitable, like it's hard to imagine changes they make that are in pursuit of profit that actually make the experience better for the people that are using the site, whether it's on the streaming side or on the viewing side. Phil Bosch says, make streamers pay a fee. Everyone would just go to YouTube. You know, there's still, you know, they could do something like that for people that don't have audiences, but then those people would just go to YouTube too, because they don't have audiences that they need to draw over. Like people that have, you know, 10,000 viewers on Twitch, if they make the jump to YouTube, there's no guarantee that all those people will go. People with 2 viewers that are friends of theirs on a Discord somewhere, if they switched to YouTube or Vaughn Live or whatever, you know, whatever the hell else, then they would just go over there. Yes, unless YouTube started charging as well and they just colluded to fucking, you know, make all of that happen. The bandwidth involved in like a small streamer streaming to a handful of people with 0 transcodes because they don't get transcoding support from Twitch because they're not partners, because they're not this. At the end of the day, that's not the thing that's... I can't imagine. I have not seen Twitch's books, but I cannot imagine that the thing that's costing Twitch so much money is someone's running a stream with no one watching or 2 people watching or whatever else. You know, just in terms of like, hey, we're ingesting this stream and we're spitting it back out. I don't think that that's something that's going to be a massive cost center for them. Maybe when you aggregate it all and you go like, oh, you know, whatever large percentage of non-partners are streaming and, you know, not monetizing and whatever else, maybe that does become significant. I don't know. But it's hard for me to imagine that being that's why the smaller streamers don't get transcodes. It's why they have the enhanced streaming option that I'm not currently using because it was causing me problems last time I tried it. Which the enhanced streaming beta that they were running in OBS was so that you could do the transcodes yourself. And now if you're not a partner, you can still have different qualities of video, high or low or whatever, as long as you have the bandwidth and processor power to do it. If you cut off small streamers, then how do you make new big streamers? If you become unfriendly to people that are new to this, then how do you cultivate the next generation of streaming superstars? So if Twitch were to start charging small streamers, then they're not going to stream to Twitch, and they're going to stream somewhere else and build an audience somewhere else, potentially. So it's a fucking very difficult situation, I guess is what I would say. And so figuring out ways to fucking monetize teens in a non-gross way for once, I think it's really hard. I think it's really hard. Charging larger streamers is weird because, you know, like the people, like I don't think of myself as a large streamer. You know, the numbers that I get are cool, but it's not, you know, it's not like if I were to become a full-time Twitch streamer with no other money coming in or whatever, I would I would be on the streets. I would not be able to survive on the amount of money I make on Twitch. Anywhere close to it. If I lived at home and I was like 19, I'd be like, this is fucking sick. But no. And so I look at it as like, if you were to charge larger streamers, like you're already making money off of those streamers because those are the ones that are theoretically more attractive to larger advertisers, depending on what type of content they're doing, of course. And they are the ones that are potentially getting more subscribers and getting more ad views and getting more whatever. So Twitch is already making their money off of those streams, I would assume. They could try to force more ads per hour. I think that's a really, I don't think that that's a good survivable path. I don't think that that's a good way to go. I don't think like shoving more ads in front of people is necessarily going to be a game changer one way or the other. But yeah, I don't know, man. I think that there's, you know, the stuff they're doing on the product side, I think is really fascinating in terms of video quality, like the, you know, potential for AV1 streams and whatever else. But also I think, you know, like they're redesigning the mobile app to try to make it a more friendly experience because it hasn't been a great app before. I've been trying to, I guess what I'm saying is like, I've been trying to watch a little bit more Twitch lately just to see what the hell is going on. And seeing what other streams that are, you know, getting similar viewers to mine, but also like what's some of the way smaller ones, what's some of the way bigger ones, like what kind of setups are out there? What kind of, you know, because I my stream layouts, they could probably use a little work. But also, you know, I've been just watching people play weird old games and some of that stuff as well, and that's been entertaining at times. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's a very, like I said, it's a very hard, it feels like a very hard problem to solve. And the idea that they, you know, have been owned by Amazon for a decade and haven't really figured it out, I'm not surprised. I think that the ways to try to make money off of folks in this space or on the web, on a goddamn website, whether it's video advertising or otherwise, I think that's a really tricky thing these days. But what Twitch has that a lot of other websites and a lot of other outlets don't is that it's live. If you think about the things that benefit television these days, what's left of television, it's live sports. It's wrestling, which is usually broadcast live. Things that feel like you cannot miss it. And so the best things that happen on streams are things that you're like, I can't believe that fucking happened. Moments that just kind of arise out of thin air, whether it's something that happened in a game or, you know, someone fell out of their chair, just like dumb shit. Like those are the sorts of things that keep people watching because it's live, because you never know. That is why I love live video. That's why I love doing this show live. It would be much easier and probably a cleaner output if I were to record this podcast ahead of time and even lightly edit it to tighten it up a little bit. But I love doing shit live. I love it when things go wrong. That is my favorite. In this environment, less so. But I really enjoy the fucking, like, there is an energy to doing things live that simply does not exist any other way. Whether that's live calls, like more just like interactive fucking live weird shit. Forcing hosts to deal with shit in a live environment, I think, is way more fun. And yeah, man, I don't know. So Twitch has that. And that's the main thing they have. And they have decent clipping tools for people that want to share those moments, but like the experience of, and it's why, it's why I have a YouTube channel. If the Twitch VOD experience was good and also like monetized as well as YouTube, I guess I should also, say like, that does matter. Then I probably wouldn't have I would probably be all in on Twitch and not even really fuck with YouTube. But like their experience I don't like the YouTube live experience and I don't like the Twitch VOD experience. And never the twain shall meet. So yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know how you leverage that, because also, well, you saw what happened when Twitch tried to step in and say, hey, a lot of you are sponsoring your broadcasts in other ways that don't give us a cut, and we think that should stop. And people were like, well, check this shit out. No. And they had to back down from those rule changes. It's I don't know. It's a very interesting beast, this whole live streaming thing. And YouTube, Neurokip says is baffled that YouTube is not pushing to compete with Twitch. YouTube launched their YouTube gaming thing, and it never felt like they cared about it that much. Like the YouTube gaming had a big launch, and I think I was on one of their live streams right around the, when they launched around E3 or something like that. And they really tried to push into it, and then it just kind of, like YouTube is just YouTube. It doesn't need to be broken up into, 20 different buckets. Like the gaming interface was not that different than the regular interface, and why you wouldn't need it to be different. And, I think YouTube is fine at streaming games all on its own, generally speaking. It's just it's the archive experience of what happens to that live stream after the fact and everything else that becomes a little trickier. I miss Beam.pro, man. Mixer. That's where the action was, baby. That was a fun streaming website. It was a mess. But at the time, the lowest latency in the game. I think Twitch really caught up in a big way. Mixer was great because it forced other sites to advance their technology stack in some ways, but also, TikTok. There is a real push, or there was a real push for TikTok to have a bigger presence in gaming. And you do find the streams of people playing video games live on TikTok. I don't see that many. I don't see that many live streams on TikTok anymore, because I think I just swiped past them so many times that the algorithm was like, all right, I get it. You don't want to see this bullshit. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to see this bullshit. But yeah, I mean, TikTok has a department of people that are in charge of gaming, that are in charge of getting, more and better gaming content and partnerships and whatever else onto TikTok. So, they have people dedicated to that task as well. And I imagine they do it. I imagine they do fine on that stuff for whatever they need. But yeah, man, I don't know. The landscape for streaming is so weird. I really like Patreon as I think like as a product. They're not really in the live streaming space. And even if you wanted to do member only live streams, I think it would be easier for me to stream an unlisted video to YouTube and embed that on Patreon. And so that's what I've been doing. Yeah, like Acronym says it, like the Patreon has their own video player. You can upload videos directly to Patreon, but it's not awesome. It's not awesome, that video player. And it's gotten better for sure, but it's hard to compete with YouTube. That was the thing when I was on a website and we had our own video player, people would complain about the video player and we would do our best to figure it out. And the answer was always, or the situation was always, someone in Australia is having a really hard time with videos. I was like, yeah, well, I mean, we do have there is a distribution center there. Like this shouldn't be a problem, but also people compare everything to YouTube. And of course, YouTube works great. And of course, YouTube works astoundingly well around the world. It's their entire business. How the amount of people that they have devoted to making sure that the video player is perfect and that it works in all of these different places. And like, there was no way. And we finally, we would, that's not to say that we gave up on it or tried to, or, just like shove it off on that and use that as an excuse. It was more like that was the reality of it. It was like, the engineering team is incredibly bright. They are fucking incredibly good at what they do. And they're serving a lot of different masters, and there's only so much time they can vote to any one thing, but they always wanted to work on our stuff because our problems were usually way more fun than the ad related bullshit they had to do for everybody else. But even then, man, there's only so much you can do because you don't have the resources that YouTube had. And yeah, it was just always a hard problem to solve. And yeah, and it was always very, very frustrating. But like the reality, but you had to be real about it at a certain point. You're like, all right, there's only so much we can do here, and we've got to focus on the problems that impact the most people, and we'll do what we can. And it's why I wanted to, well, whatever. It's why I wanted to upload all video to YouTube and start doing YouTube memberships as well, specifically so people in parts of the world where our video player sucked shit could sign up for a YouTube subscription instead. And watch videos that way. But whatever. That's it for the news. Thanks everybody for newsing it up this week. Thanks everybody who had news this week. Yeah, we're just gonna get everything on Real Player, man. That's where it's at. No, I don't. There's all these other fucking platforms now that are trying to like. I get a lot of junk mail related to other subscription platforms that are not Patreon. That are like, we do subscription video and we do this and we do that, and I always look at it and it's like, it's creator owned. And you go and look at what that means, and you go like, okay, that just means someone else. It doesn't mean I would own it. It means that some other creator owns it. That doesn't mean that the terms are automatically better or worse or anything. The people that founded Patreon made a bunch of stuff at one point in time, didn't they? Certainly the people that made Kickstarter did. Anyway. Emails. Podcast@guard.bike is the email address. Thanks to everybody for sending in emails. We'll take a few of them here. And see what we got here. Naveen writes in from Ontario and says, it's been a common sentiment these days that the current generation consoles, and often Switch and PC, are largely indistinguishable from one another in terms of their game library. Contrast that with the 80s and 90s, where consoles stood out with hundreds of unique games and ports could greatly differ on each platform. My question is, what was the tipping point that led us all to this generic platform future? I think that the Switch is not necessarily a part of that. It can be at times, but it's not, I don't know. It is less a part of this conversation because I think a lot of Switch ports are real funky. But sure. But it is the architecture, PS4, when PS4 and Xbox One came out and they were both like x86 based devices, and they were relatively similar to each other and relatively similar to the PC architecture of the day. I think that is what did that for real. You know, you saw it happening more and more over time. Like the PS2, Xbox, GameCube era was very similar. Where you'd be able to, like, you could tell the differences right off the bat of, like, okay, the PS2 version is going to look like this, but it's also going to be the one that most people have played. The GameCube version will look slightly better than that, but maybe a little blurry, and the Xbox version will probably look best of all, but the fewest people will play it because you have to play it on an Xbox. And that's usually how that went back then. I don't necessarily, like, I don't know that I feel a type of way about this, because at the end of the day, a lot of people don't own multiple platforms, and a lot of people are not buying the same game across multiple platforms unless they're real sickos. So it when it comes to third-party games that are appearing across multiple platforms, I don't think that really matters. Exclusive games and all of that, like, yeah, there used to be more of those, I guess. Sometimes as a result of business deals, sometimes just through happenstance. But generally speaking, like, as long as the games are similar enough and, you know, well within the expectations of what you would want that console to do, it's hard to, you know, like, oh, this one's slightly less fuzzy, or this one's a little bit, you know, like, all right, whatever, man. Who cares? The differences between Xbox Series X and PS5, you know, have often been things where, like, at launch, the Xbox Series X version is like fucked up in this weirdly specific way, and Digital Foundry broke it down, and then it gets patched, and you're like, okay, well, yeah, it was just some temporary issue that they fixed, and that's that. When I was, you know, I don't want to talk about the First Descendant. Hey, there's a review of the First Descendant up on Patreon. If you want to go to patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann, I wrote a full review of the hit Nexon game, The First Descendant. When that game launched, the console versions were both fucked up for like a week or two. And then they patched it, and now it's fine. Like, the frame rate was funky in towns, and it just the settings weren't working right, and like there were just like weird things about the console versions of that game that they ironed out, and now you load them up on an Xbox or a PS5, and you go like, all right, yeah, this is absolutely acceptable, and whatever, works fine. Is the PS4 version still fucked up? I have no idea. I didn't even know it was on PS4. I should download that one because I could get all those trophies all over again. But yeah, man, it does not matter nearly as much. And also, now that we have crossplay in a lot of multiplayer games, that was the other deciding factor, right? Is like, oh, well, all my friends are getting Rainbow Six Siege on Xbox, and so I have to get the Xbox version so I can play with them, or, you know, whatever it is. But now that crossplay has become, I think it's the expectation. Honestly, I think every game should have it at this point. Unless they've got a damn good reason not to, based on controls or, you know, whatever else. But in a general sense, like, you know, you want the largest player base possible. You want to always be able to find a match, and cross-play, cross-progression, all of those things enable that. And I think that should be the standard. And it's increasingly, it feels like it's becoming the standard. But again, it's not quite there yet. But if you're asking what is the tipping point that got us to this point, it is the previous generation, the PS4 and the Xbox One, were basically right there. Let's see here. Keegan from Philly writes in and says, a few weeks ago on the podcast, you said some people liked Brink. I'm some people. I still think about Brink like once a week. Thank you for recognizing us. There are dozens of us. Yeah. Brink had the feel of a game that could have been big there for a very brief period of time, and then it came out. And that was that. Whisk writes in and says, I feel like I finally woken up to game news outlets picking some upcoming, likely disappointing or mediocre game and using it as a punching bag for months before launch and then usually weeks after. This year's have been Suicide Squad and Concord, and I'm getting very exhausted of hearing how little anyone cares about Concord in particular. I'm assuming there's a large group of people who enjoy hearing about mismanaged games, and that drives the desire to report on them ad nauseum. But is there something of value that can actually be learned from these cases instead of pointing and cringing? So I think there's a fine line there, right? I mean, I do think that like reporting on these games, these are upcoming games. In the particular, like these are both also big budget video games. Like these are games that are going to get in front of people. Like Suicide Squad was heavily advertised on television. And so at some point, like when you are... it's less than it used to be just by virtue of like there's not as much of a video game press out there anymore. But the way I always viewed it reviewing games is that in a lot of ways we were the last line of defense against these marketing campaigns and these pre-order campaigns and like these very carefully curated preview cycles and like, oh, look at this amazing video game and oh, look at this awesome screenshot. It's the Joker. Like you needed to have like the counterbalance at the end to say, were they lying or not? You needed somebody to be there to say, hey, by the way, the Suicide Squad game that they've been advertising all over television, it's fucking terrible. You should not spend your money on this. Like that's part of the value that people in the position of, you know, people in press positions can serve. It's not the only valuable position they can serve, but it is certainly a part of that. I think it's, but also, yes, I think like picking it apart and, you know, like I try to, you know, remind people that like, hey, these guys, like Concord's not out yet. When I look at the situation and I look at the number of people that played it and it's in the news again because they just had their playable beta. I think there is that aspect to it of just like, I'm not sure that this game's going to make it. And I think increasingly with multiplayer games, I've said this before, I think that is a very valuable like thing to offer. As much as it's like annoying to talk about, does a game have legs or does it have the juice or, you know, whatever bullshit. Like at the end of the day, especially for these games that are not free to play, like Concord, not only is it the review has to answer the question of, is this game worth $50? But like also there is that kind of ongoing thing where, hey, we saw this game early and they did a beta, they did this. And you have to start to ask the questions like, is this game going to appeal to enough people? Like, let's say you love it. Let's say you're one of these people that you're like, I think Concord is amazing. I love this video game. I love these characters. They're great. Whatever. There will be people that fit that exactly. And that's fine. That's cool. Those people still need to know, hey, is anyone going to be playing this game in 6 months? Or is it going to completely dry up? Like that's still, it's unfortunate that that's become a valuable conversation, right? Because it becomes this like almost analyst style perspective where you're like, you're not even talking about the quality of the game anymore. You're talking about the competitiveness of the market and all of this other stuff, right? These factors that exist outside the game. Where I play Concord and I go, yeah, this is fine. It didn't, like, nothing about it blew me away, but it's an absolutely competent first-person shooter. It's got some ideas. And all right, yeah, I could see maybe, like I said, I could see someone getting into it. Do I see enough people getting into it that it's something that's going to have a big multi-year lifespan and like the servers will always be rocking and you're always going to be able to find a match and do all that? Like, that I am just shy here of saying absolutely not. I think there's a shot. And at the end of the day, weirder things have happened. Like I've seen games take off and I'm like, all right. But it's hard for me to see that path for that game. And so I think that becomes a valuable part of the conversation around the games, and that's something that can change depending on other games coming out. And so that's why I think some of these games come up more frequently than others, is because they're big budget games, and that means that there's a lot of money and jobs and everything else riding on them, and that makes them interesting to discuss. I think that using games as punching bags, I try not to. I have. Within the last month, I'm sure I have brought Suicide Squad up in a less than serious manner. I try not to do that, but sometimes you do. But yeah, I think that like the ongoing, especially because these games are designed to be live service games. Like the Avengers was a great example of this. Of like, they spent so much time talking about that Avengers game and their amazing plans and how much years or content or whatever the hell their plans were for that Avengers game. And then they showed it at E3 and everyone was like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? This is the thing you think is going to be this multi-year? This is what you're... And so at that point, you know, because they're still kind of holding to the, well, we're going to release all the stuff that we announced for it. We're going to try to stick it out because we told players when they bought the game that we were going to make this shit. So we're going to make this shit. You have a lot of different news hits for it where you're just like, oh, by the way, season 4 of the content for this came out. And you're like, all right, good luck to the 6 people still playing that, I guess. So some of these games just come up naturally more often than others because they're still receiving updates of some kind. I think that's why, you know, Suicide Squad came up again because they're trying to launch their second season. And the response to that is just like, fuck, yeah, okay. Like, how many people actually want that? How many people actually want that? Like, I bet that Warner wishes they could just fucking walk away from that thing right now and not sink any more money into making any more content for Suicide Squad because it's not going to make them money back. But they can't. And yeah, and yes, the game was free on Epic. It was a Amazon, it was a Twitch Prime free game there for a week or something there too. And so maybe you get an influx of new players playing Suicide Squad and maybe some of them buy some stuff. They're like, oh, I bought a skin for Boomerang Man. Boomerang Man? Is that his? Anyway. Shark Guy is here. He's mad. And he's voiced by Samoa Joe. That sounds like it should be good, but it wasn't good. So yeah, I don't know. I think like some of those games kind of naturally come up more frequently because they're issuing these updates and there's kind of another time to talk about it and revisit it and go, yeah, this doesn't, they're still doing it. Let's see here. Javi from Mexico writes in and says, they still make arcade games. When did it all go wrong? They must, right? Sure, arcades aren't what they used to be, but I still find it weird how no one outside of very specific scenes really cares about new arcade games, even just as a unique design space for games. There was a Pac-Man game that came out this year, and yet no one seems to care enough to cover it. Fair is fair, maybe the games just aren't interesting anymore, but I still find it weird just how irrelevant new arcade games seem to have become to the larger gaming culture. Everyone knows and appreciates the classics, but at some point it seems everyone also decided they just weren't worth paying attention to anymore. When do you think this shift happened? In the late 90s or even earlier? No, not as the late, no. Not in the late 90s. Later than that, for sure, but like there's the weird thing that happened was like they started making arcade games based on like Doodle Jump and Slither.io and like mobile games. And it's fucking weird. I think there's something about Raw Thrills, which is the developer out of Chicago that Eugene Jarvis started. And they just put out a basketball game that is, one of their subsidiaries developed it, I think. But like they just did a basketball game that looks very NBA Jam-like. And I really want to see it for myself because it sounds kind of cool. But like they did like that Fast and the Furious driving. Like there was a while there where just a bunch of fucking shitty looking driving games were coming out all the time. And not Cruisin' Exotica or just Cruisin', the most recent Cruisin' game. It was just other weird stuff where it's like, here's the Fast and the Furious game about super bikes. And then EA put a Need for Speed game into a cockpit and they did an arcade version of Madden or something out of nowhere. And like, there's just a bunch of weird stuff like that every time I see those games in particular, the Fast and Furious driving games specifically, but like that era, that weird, like they don't seem like real games to me. I just look at it and go like, wow, what? They just look like adaptations of like someone took a PC game and threw it into a driving cockpit and like made it take quarters, and it's not like it just, I don't know, it's just they don't feel like fully conceived arcade games. And Cruisin', the most recent Cruisin', which has an arcade version as well as on the Switch, I think that's really neat too. But like, yeah, a lot of it is like arcades used to be more powerful than the home consoles, and they could get away with that because you were paying, you know, what, $7,000 for an arcade cabinet. And you'd make your money back one quarter at a time, but that balance of power shifted, you know, and also I think the audience for arcades changed to be a much more casual audience because the hardcore player was staying home and playing games there. And so arcades, in an attempt to, like, they went away completely for a long time, it felt like, and then they kind of came back. I think Raw Thrills was probably one of the developers that felt like they were bringing arcades back in some weird way. And so that led to this kind of new type of consumer, whether it's like a Dave and Buster's or just like, hey, our pizza place has a machine here, or you know, you're running an arcade bar, but you've got some new stuff in there along with your retro games or whatever. It's a strange mix of games. And then you get some of these like Doodle Jump or some of these mobile adaptations. There was that big Halo light gun game that they did. There was like a I want to say it was like 6 people sitting in one giant cockpit with like mounted guns that were shooting them. And so they become these more experiential devices than like, let's sit here and play a fighting game. You know, it's like, okay, we're going to all get in the cockpit, or we're going to play Fruit Ninja and swing the big plastic sword, or we're going to get behind the wheel of the car. And like everything just became these big gargantuan, super expensive cabs that are all super bespoke and fucking weird and just kind of, you know, their own thing, appealing to an audience that, you know, don't necessarily think about video games all the time, but there's somewhere that happens to have video games and they're like, yeah, let's give it a go, man. That's how I always kind of viewed it. And so that market still exists, and a lot of them became like ticket redemption machines along the way. There was a little bitty push there for the idea of the indie arcade game, like when Killer Queen came out. And I remember, man, this was like, God, this was at least 5 years before Killer Queen came out in arcades. But I remember having a conversation with someone who had become obsessed with the idea of becoming a game publisher for arcade games, for new arcade games. And specifically, like, could you get indie developers to make a new style of arcade game? And then either you are selling those machines to existing places, or you're trying to open up a chain yourself with these machines that you are making. And and like just, you know, kind of throwing around ideas as like, you know, what could we get people to invest in specifically? Like, is this something that would investors would throw a lot of money at this? And I remember at the time being like, man, like you might be able to get investors to throw money at it, but I don't think that would be good. When was this? This was like 2012, 2013, something like that. No, it was before that. When did Killer Queen come out? Because I remember Killer Queen coming out and being like, oh, huh. Weird. It's kind of that. 2019? Okay, yeah. So this was... Yeah. So this was a conversation well before that of just like, hey, is there... Could we try to... Like, could that be a business? And I'm like, yeah, I mean... It'd be a really small business. I mean, what are you making, like 30 of these machines? Like, how many locations around the country are you doing this for? What do you know, like, are you making 5,000 of these cabinets at most? Like, I don't know what Stern is making, what their numbers are for pinball machines these days, but pinball is an even weirder market. But I guess the answer is I think there maybe could have been a window for that. Yeah. When you look at where arcades have gone, like if you were offering a steady flow of new games, you could potentially do that. Yeah, Killer Queen Arcade was 2013. Okay, there you go. Yeah. That makes a little more sense. So I remember this being a little bit before Killer Queen was in arcades. It was during E3 in a parking lot. A weird conversation about coffee and arcade games. Ugh. Derek writes in and says, Derek from New Jersey here. I just wanted to write in and inform you of this bizarre fast food building combo I saw at the Jersey Shore. It was a Dunkin' and a Buffalo Wild Wings Go in the same building using the same drive-through. That is all. I think that there's probably, like, that's almost like a breakfast place pairing up with a not breakfast place, right? I wonder, like, what kind of business does a Dunkin' Donuts do after 12 o'clock, after noon? That must taper off. And I know that they've tried to vary up their menu to try to have, well, at some point they said, we're selling bacon in a bag. Do you want some snacking bacon? So I would think that the majority of the Dunkin'-related orders would taper off as the Buffalo Wild Wings orders would be coming on at that time of the day. That to me is how that makes some amount of sense. And so you're not making them both at the same time, but also, yeah, I don't know, man. Do you want a bunch of donuts that have been sitting around near a bunch of buffalo wings? I'm not sure. That seems like it has a high potential for being real gross. But anyway, yuck. That's going to do it for the emails. Thanks everybody for writing in. podcast@guard.bike again is the email address. Thanks everybody for listening. Well, you know, maybe tomorrow we'll mess around with the old, we'll slap some buttons. Slap some of these damn buttons. I've been looking for more excuses to use this thing. I haven't had a ton of time with it. So I've been wanting to spend a few hours here with it, but yeah, we'll hook up the old leverless pad and maybe I'll aim the camera down at the table, something real sexy, and we'll do something with some fighting games, you know? Anyway, as always, patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann. Support the broadcast. Get an ad-free version of the show, all that good stuff, and bonus content. And I will see you Wednesday. And we'll do some fighting games on Wednesday, and then come back Friday. We'll rank some 8-bit Nintendo games. Until then, I'll see you.